Good evening. This is the regular joint meeting of the Oakley City Council acting as the successor agency to the Oakley Redevelopment Agency, Oakley Public Financing Authority. This meeting is called to order at 6:30 p.m. I will now conduct the roll call. Councilmember Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Fuller?
Dr. OG's here.
Councilmember Meadows?
Here.
Vice Mayor Shaw? Here. And I am the mayor, Anissa Williams. We now invite to come up here the Boy Scout Troop 152, and they will lead us all in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two.
All right, next we are moving on to item 1.3, which is a presentation of proclamations. I will be presenting the LGBTQ plus Pride Month, and we have a group representing the East Bay LGBTQIA Teen and Family Support Group. So if you can meet me down there. You guys brought a crowd. All right, I'm gonna come over here so that hopefully everybody can see me. Yeah, you guys can all go right there. Perfect. All right, proclamation, LGBTQ plus Pride Month, June 2024. Whereas the city of Oakley is a welcoming community and an exceptional place to live, learn, work, play, and raise a family. And whereas the nation was founded upon and is guided by a set of principles that includes that every person has been created equal, that each has rights to their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and that each shall be afforded the full recognition and protection of the law. And whereas the city of Oakley recognizes the importance of equality and freedom and is dedicated to fostering acceptance of all its citizens and preventing discrimination and bullying based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And whereas the city of Oakley is strengthened by the rich diversity of ethnic, cultural, racial, gender, and sexual identities of its residents, all of which contribute to the vibrant character of the city. And whereas many of the residents, students, city employees, and business owners within the city of Oakley who contribute to the enrichment of the city are part of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning community. And whereas June has become a symbolic month in which lesbians, gay men, bisexual people, transgender, questioning, and supporters come together in various celebrations of pride. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Oakley City Council, do hereby proclaim June 2024 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in Oakley and encourage all residents to recognize the contributions made by members of the LGBTQ plus community and to actively promote the principles of equality and liberty.
I have a few words. Thank you so much. First and foremost, it's nice that the recognition is there. So the Compton's Cafeteria Riot in 1966 and the Stonewall Riots in 1969 were pivotal events in the LGBTQ plus rights movement and played significant roles in shaping the modern celebration of Pride Month. The Compton's Cafeteria Riot took place in San Francisco's Tenderloin District and was a response to the constant police harassment and discrimination faced by transgender individuals, drag queens, and other members of the LGBTQIA plus community. This uprising, although less known than the Stonewall riots, marked one of the first recorded transgender-led protests in the United States. The Stonewall riots occurred in New York City's Greenwich Village when patrons of the Stonewall Inn, a popular gay bar, rebelled against a police raid. The riots lasted for several days and sparked a wave of activism and organizing within the LGBTQ+ community. These events galvanized the LGBTQIA+ community, leading to the formation of activist groups and the emergence of a more visible and vocal movement for LGBTQ+ rights. In the years following these riots, annual pride parades and marches began to commemorate the events and celebrate LGBTQIA+ identity and visibility. Today, as Mayor Williams mentioned, Pride Month is celebrated in June, and it's a time for the LGBTQIA+ community and its allies to come together to honor the impact of these historic events, advocate for equal rights, and celebrate the diversity and resilience of the LGBTQIA+ community. The number of American adults currently who identify as LGBTQIA+ has more than doubled in the last 12 years, according to recent Gallup polls. The latest results show that 7.6% of US adults now align themselves with the queer community, up from 3.5% in 2012. According to the Trevor Project, LGBTQ+ young people are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. Please take a moment and think about that. More than 4 times. They also estimate that more than 1.8 million queer young people between the ages of 13 and 24 seriously consider suicide each year in the US, and at least one attempts suicide every 45 seconds. So when you ask yourselves why we celebrate Pride, why we need a whole month to celebrate who we're born as, this is why. And so thank you for your support. We're everywhere. We're among you. We're your neighbors. We're your business people. We're your elected officials, and we don't have an agenda. We just want to live our lives with the people we love in peace, just like everybody else. So thank you.
Thank you, Oakley, for creating a safe space for all. Well, we started something a couple council meetings ago, so anybody who wants to come join the picture for the proclamations, feel free. All right, next we are moving on to item 1.4, which is the update from Contra Costa Transportation Authority Citizens Advisory Committee, Kai Christian Torf. No? Okay. I am so sorry. This has been rescheduled to July 9th. Sorry about that, everybody. All right, at this time, we are moving on to item 2, public comments. Public comments will be heard for items not on the agenda. I do have public speaker cards. We also have submitted online comments, which we will submit into the minutes. Please complete a blue speaker card located in the lobby and submit to the city clerk. The time limit to speak is 3 minutes, and the time limit is monitored by the timer located in front of my seat. When 1 minute remains on the timer, it will beep once as a reminder to complete comments before your time expires. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, or other outbursts so that everyone may have an opportunity to be heard. Note that due to provisions of state law, the council may not engage in dialogue regarding comments. Staff may be directed to respond to persons making public comment, and we do have to take that timer very seriously, so as soon as it happens, please mind the time because we're gonna stop it. All right, so if we can have Roger Marmon come up, please.
Mayor, City Council, thank you for allowing me to speak. The last name is pronounced Mammon. As mentioned on the public comments, I'm here to talk about the Delta, and a lot of you have heard that the Sites Reservoir project had been fast-tracked by the governor, and the Superior Court judge has fast-tracked it, ignoring, essentially, the California Environmental Quality Act. Now, this isn't the final word. I was talking to Barbara at Restore the Delta earlier today, and she said things are going to be happening to protect our Delta. One thing I found out since I said I start showing up at the city council meetings, a lot of these meetings having to do with the Delta occur on Tuesdays. So the Delta Heritage Authority Area Management Plan Advisory Committee, they're meeting this Tuesday, June 18th, between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. at the Rio Vista Senior Center in Rio Vista. Today there was a meeting at the Big Break Center, and it's called Just Transitions in the Delta, and it was essentially about what people feel about the Delta and what can be done about the various things that are going on. And one of the things that I truly noticed was that they didn't talk about reducing any amount of exports. They were talking about what could be done by spending more money to fix it. And the next meeting will be in about 9 or 10 months, and it'll probably be in Rio Vista or Walnut Grove. And that's about all I have to do to bring you up to date, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. All right, next we have Roxanne Warner.
Hi there. I want to thank the mayor, the assistant mayor, or the vice mayor, excuse me, and the council members, and most importantly, the public, to our community here. As a licensed psychiatric technician and a single mother of 2 grown, successful adult children, we all know that life's been challenging and is actually more challenging today. I'm asking you that you all highly consider the needs of our heroic veterans and seniors of our community who have taught others, raised children, fought for our freedoms in wars to instill quality life for all of us. The Older Americans Act places high regard with communities that cater to its seniors by utilizing widely used senior centers, services such as social and health benefits, resources, building of increased friendship, increases in healthier meal planning, nutrition, availability, fitness, transportation services, and integrational programs, and be in service to all in the community, etc. All of this incorporate renewal of a sense of purpose to the seniors and the veterans. It decreases isolation, lowers depression, decreases in substance abuse, and overall better quality of life and longevity. Many of today's vets and seniors had minimal availability to the skills that are available to today's children, teens, and all of that. Vets and seniors deserve to have space with concrete structure and dependability so they can build a better sense of purpose, which is, in the long term, will be handed down as examples to upcoming generations. Seniors need less chaos, less interruptions, and more structure so they too can continue to thrive, Quaintancy, small locations, and intimacy gets lost in large, bureaucratic, government-run buildings where everything's shared. The only investment I bring here is a heart for service, so we as seniors and vets can exude our duty to be the best examples for future generations. Please consider all avenues in the decision-making process of an adequate, well-thought-out plan for us so we may relocate appropriately to do our jobs well done for our community. Is our name so good for funding? Do we not deserve adequate space with our needs met? Better purpose, thriving, and quality of life lived is the best example we can give to the children today.
Sorry, time is up.
Thank you.
All right, Alan Perry.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, and members of the public. I got kind of thrown in for a spokesperson for our food program customers. Since our food bank customers got wind of the food program going to be discontinued at some point in the future, they got together and they wrote me multiple letters of not wanting to cancel it. I got a petition here of over 35 signatures. I got approximately 40 letters that they wrote me expressing their desire for it to continue. Every week we see new faces in our line, and some avoid contact as they are somewhat embarrassed to be in the line because they don't like to be in a food line program. So, and none of our customers want to be here. They don't want to get in line as early as 5:30 in the morning, and we pass out our numbers at 9. So there's people that line up at 5:30. When I go down there to open up at 8, there is not a space in our parking lot. It's full, and there's people around the building waiting to get numbers we pass out for the food. And they don't want to get in line at that early. They don't want, we average about 75 to 80 people in line, and that represents about 300 individual families. And they don't want to stand in line in 100-degree weather. They don't want to stand in the cold rain. They don't want to stand in line with 2 or 3 children, crying. They don't want to stand in line with walkers or wheelchairs or canes, but they need to feed their families. Most of our customers, the food we give them is the only food they get for that week. Many walk from the area because they don't have a car. So they, most of them around in our neighborhood, they walk. And to end this program, we'll put a lot of those in the neighborhood of our senior center and really severe hardship because they won't be able to get that food that they need. And another point here, I've been doing a lot of Googling on standalone senior centers. There's 11,000 senior centers in the United States. 586 are in California. And numerous of them are in almost every major city or even small cities has a senior center. With much smaller population than Oakley. King City, 13,000 has a senior center. Big Pine Lake has a senior, 1,563 people.
Sorry.
Marysville, 12,000.
Sorry, time is up.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, all right, no problem.
Next is Mike Castro, but it was checked. I wish to speak and I do not wish to speak. You do wish to speak? Okay, come on up.
Hi, Mayor, and everyone else, city, and all the people here. I have to say, on the 1st of May, we had a meeting, and Donna Baker asked about where are we going to be to Josh, and Josh said, this is not the place or time to talk about this. When I asked him on the 15th He said the same thing to me. I also asked him and said, if we have to park across the street, that is an accident waiting to happen. And he says, no, it isn't. Well, he obviously doesn't know seniors, because yes, it is. And then when I said this here on the 21st, I believe he said this is the first he heard of it. So we, the seniors, can't believe what comes out of his mouth anymore. We feel he's not for the seniors. We feel he's just for the library and the funds. So we feel he should be replaced with a better person that's for the seniors also, which we don't believe he is. Thank you.
Okay, next I have Chris Paloma.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Chris Palomo. I'm a field rep with the NorCal Carpenters Union at a local 152 in Martinez, covering all of Contra Costa County. I'd first like to thank you guys for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm here to talk to you guys again about implementing labor standards in the city of Oakley. Frankly, there's a lot of tax fraud and wage theft going on, not just in the city. You know, it's going all over across the county and the state. Actually, $8.4 billion a year are committed in tax fraud. That's insane. These workers that are building our houses, the places we live in, they're getting taken advantage of. They're not getting paid a livable wage. They're not getting health care, not able to join a joint apprenticeship program and able to better their future. And there's no compliance, even on prevailing wage jobs, right? Our PLA projects, you'll get prevailing wage. They're still not getting health care. Those contractors are putting it on the check, and it's project to project. Those workers aren't going to pay for health care on one project, right? These contractors and developers should be obligated to have health care for these workers on every single project, not just project to project basis. This is back-breaking work, working in, today was 96 degrees. So most of the time it's gonna even get over 100. They're working 12 hours a day sometimes. Getting paid a minimum wage, barely making it on ends meet is unacceptable. They're constantly taking advantage of these workers. They're with tax fraud, right? That not only when they're misclassifying these workers and not, with the wage theft and tax fraud, not only does it hurt those workers, it hurts all of us. Those are taxes. Those taxes are building bridges for the schools, helping our community. So it's not just affecting them, it's affecting everybody. By implementing language such as like pre-qualification language, enforcing that when these contractors and developers have to pay prevailing wage, and not just a prevailing wage, but health care for all of their workers, have to implement a state certified joint apprenticeship program, and compliance, because even with the city and the DIR, they're spread too thin. They're not able to monitor and walk these projects. I walk all these projects every day. I talk to these workers. They have no help out there. So it would be great if you guys can. I would love to sit down and talk with each and every one of you on ideas we have to help better the city for the workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is William Carpenter.
Mayor, members of the City Council, and citizens of Oakley Public, thank you for allowing me to speak. In a short time, the city will be demolishing the current senior center building in order to build more low-income housing. As a disabled veteran and more senior than the average, I appreciate the opportunity to visit the current senior center, which is geared towards my generation. Living alone and attempting to live independently, I welcome the opportunity to visit and socialize with those of my generation who share the same experiences and interests. It is a place I can go once a week to share a balanced meal with others and swap stories and lies sometimes that we think are true. The city plan is for a new library and community center. I agree that these things are also needed in our community. However, should it be at the expense of the seniors? Perhaps a modification of these plans, expanding one of the buildings to 2 stories, would accommodate a separate but also vital senior center while keeping the much-needed other planned facilities. Currently, the city envisions a senior center consisting of a couple of office spaces housed by the recreation center or library complex, with no space for the functions and services conducted solely for the senior community. Further, in my opinion, the city does not have plans for adequate parking adjacent to the proposed library complex that would accommodate elderly and handicapped, especially if a Tri-Delta transit stop is created there. They subtly indicate a parking lot a block or further away isn't a problem for those of us with mobility issues. The city says they have insufficient funding for us and that seniors and veterans aren't involved in securing funding for the separate senior facility. I ask you, the Oakley public, isn't this the function of a city leadership that values their older citizens? Or are they just using the senior center and veterans as a ruse to obtain more funding for the library and community center? We, the seniors, still have value and want to share. We still have meaning and worth. I urge the Oakley public to get involved and know that someday you too will be seniors with your needs and wants being cast aside. See what is happening to us, know it could happen to you, and say this isn't right. Stand up and support your fathers, your grandfathers, and in my case, great-grandfathers, many of whom built this community. We need a facility large enough to accommodate the functions of the senior community, run by seniors who understand the issues of growing old and the special needs we have. A facility that provides services geared for the older is what is needed to be called an Oakley Senior Center. We don't need a small office space in a corner of a library that just as many young folks want to hide old things or no longer use or value. Thank you for listening to me.
All right, next up is Donna Baker.
Hello to everyone, just to make it simple. I would like to first tell everybody how much I appreciate all the hard work that has gone in so far for our community, and I applaud all the effort so far for the library/senior citizens senior citizens building, sorry. In order to qualify for the grants, I understand that the city needs to include both the Oakley seniors and the veterans. I have a suggestion. May I suggest that the Oakley seniors keep our current location, plus the lot behind us that has already been given to the city. Together, we apply for all of the grants so that we can continue to use the property, and depending upon the funding, we may or may not have to use a small portion of that $7.5 million set to the side just for the library. Available state and federal grants includes grants for senior citizen centers, for older American acts, for veteran groups, and transportation. Meanwhile, we could temporarily move all of the public library items to classroom portables that are already owned by the library district to city property of your choice, which would allow Freedom High School their space. A win for Liberty Union High School District, as well as Freedom High School. A win for the Oakley seniors, the veterans, and 4-H. A win for the food bank so we may continue help feeding the needs of our citizens, as well as Meals on Wheels that operates out of our building, and Coco Cafe, which eventually wants to expand their program to 5 days a week, and a win for public transportation. And most of all, a win for the Friends of Library, because it will give us the gift of time to continue to put out a wide net to get more money for the entire 28,000 square foot library. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We did receive one public comment online that they wanted read into the record, so I'm going to do that now. According to OU ESD website, the city of Oakley has a diverse student population of just over 5,000 students, yet the same city's recreation department only offers 60 spots for their summer camp and no camps for spring, fall, or winter 2-week breaks. Spots fill up within 2 hours of enrollment opening. There are more kids listed on the wait list than can enroll. Private camps can cost up to 6 times the amount, and some only go from 9 to 12. New homes are bringing commuter to income families to our city, and we are finding there is no safe place for our kids to go, forcing families to look outside Oakley for help, again paying non-resident fees to enroll, again taking away revenue and employment from our hometown. Instead of using the grant money for 1 free week, put that money towards additional spots all summer long. There are 6 elementary sites and 2 middle school sites that could be running smaller camps in the NPR to accommodate capacity that the recreation center cannot hold. Soon there will be an open building, City of Oakley Library on the Freedom High School campus, solving two problems: staff, high schoolers, and location. All right, okay, now we are moving on to item 3, council member comments. Do any council members have comments? Councilmember Meadows.
So we have Roger coming about every meeting now to give us updates on what's going on with the Delta. I mean, maybe have it like one time a month and give them more than 3 minutes if needed.
All right, Councilmember Fuller.
Yes, thank you for being here this evening, Mr. Palomo. I'm very happy to hear from you. I think we need to recognize the trades and what has been going on in terms of construction. The California Attorney General Bonta just recently gave $3 million to Bay Area district attorneys to investigate wage theft, wage fraud throughout the Bay Area. Contra Costa County has received over $750,000, so it is a problem. In terms of January 1st, 1863, President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed every slave in the Confederacy. It had to be carried throughout the Confederacy to be heard. We didn't have TVs or anything else, so it had to be carried into the towns by Union soldiers in the Confederacy, and you can imagine they weren't well received. So it took a while to get the whole word out. April 9th, 1865, the Civil War came to an end. In June 19th, 1865, Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, and gave the proclamation to everyone there, especially the slaves. And it was a jubilant message because it was the last one to get out. They brought out that the Civil War was over. Keep in mind, it ended April 9th, 1865, and they arrived in Galveston June 19th, 1865. They found out it was there, and subsequently it became known as Juneteenth. I had the privilege of working with Dr. Ernie Roy in the King Drew Medical Magnet in Watts, Willowbrook, the first magnet school in the Watts area. If you were a BIPOC person in the Watts area, you had to ride a bus out to the San Fernando Valley. He brought it in. In working there, I got to know about Juneteenth. I also got to know about the Black National Anthem, which James Weldon Johnson, wrote the lyrics to in 1900, to celebrating the liberty that came out. So the city of Oakley, when I arrived here, was not very friendly in terms of BIPOC. I am happy to say I began pushing for a Juneteenth celebration, and thanks to my colleagues, it's been approved. And this June 15th, right here in the Civic Center, City of Oakley will have a Juneteenth celebration. It's bringing our cultures together that a lot of people don't know about, that don't understand, and I'm happy that I've had the opportunity to do that. And in the process, yes, seniors are a demographic minority, and I will know that well because I'm past elderly and I'm in the golden years, as people say. And trust me, I get the idea that we need our own senior center. So I'll stop with that. Thank you.
Okay, we are moving on to item 4, and we do have a couple of public comments. There's also a couple things to pull, so let's get that going. We are going to pull 4.1 for some corrections, 4.4 because we have public comment, and then 4.16 I'm going to pull to have Libby give us status. Is there any other items that anybody would like to pull?
Yes, 4.9 and 4.13.
All right, do I have a motion to move the remainder?
I move the remainder.
All right, we have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstains? Any noes? All right, passes 5-0. All right, 4-1. Libby, are you going to discuss the corrections? Or do you want me to?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. I just wanted to address a couple of corrections in the minutes. The first one is on item number 7.2, the reports from council. Right before item B that indicates requests for future agendas, the paragraph prior to that, the sister city being considered a friendship city, I apologize, should be DAZU, D-A-Z-U, in 2 locations in that paragraph. The next proposed change would be on item 8.1, the work session. This would be where Dr. Fuller mentions he believed it was the Department of Economic Development category, so on and so forth. There's a sentence in there towards the middle that says she mentioned the FBI director. It should be he mentioned. I apologize. And then going further in that same agenda item where it indicates Mayor Williams mentioned Chrome Coffee or Working Wonders, just to provide clarification for the record, we would propose to strike potentially would qualify and replace that with, but it was only Working Wonders wanting a space. In parentheses, it was in relation to nonprofits qualifying for grants, period. And that concludes the corrections. Thank you.
Okay, great. Do I have a motion to approve 4.1?
I'll move 4.1 approval.
Do we have a second? Second. All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, passes 5-0. All right, 4.4, I have a couple speaker cards, and so I think Claire wants to go up first, or did you just want, okay, great. So we will have Linda Tooman, please come up.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Byron would just like to say thank you so much for recognizing us. 150 years, holy cow. None of us are going to be around that long. We're a very, very small community, and we're very proud of our little town and our produce stands, the Byron Hot Springs. We just had a couple restaurants open up, so in a blink of an eye, you can drive right through Byron, but please stop and shop there. And we would just really like to say thank you for recognizing us. Thank you very much.
Forgot the airport.
And the airport.
All right, great. After that public comment, do I have anybody who would like to move approval of item 4.4?
I move approval of item 4.4.
Okay, we have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, passes 5-0. All right, the next item is 4.9, and I believe this was you, Councilmember Fuller.
Yes, I have a statement and a question that when I drive westbound on Main Street from Rose, I don't see a disabled parking space on Main Street until I arrive in front of the grocery warehouse. There is one at the dental office. There is one at the Councilmember Meadows' favorite place, Mexican restaurant, right there, right?
Lisco's?
Yeah. Anyway, but back to it. I'm not seeing, as you drive west on Main Street on one of the drives, I'm not finding any. There used to be some. There used to be handicap parking. The bistro now has 2-hour parking, all diagonal parking. But God help you if you're in a wheelchair and want to go to the bistro, because the nearest place I can find is the dental office or Guantano's over at the ice cream place where there's 2 spaces in the parking lot. So my question is, Mr. Rohani, you're asking approval, but, and we'll go over this again in the budget, but I've been told and promised and promised and promised that we will take care of it and we will put in more handicap and we will get it with the ADA. But in this project that you're asking me to approve, we've actually reduced the number of places to park on Main Street for handicapped people. And considerable distance. Myself, I was at Guantanos, and I mean Chrome, and I parked at Guantanos, and I walked over, and I can walk, and I can get over there. Not as much as I used to, but I'm just thinking, okay, if I want to go visit the Chrome, and there's no parking spots for handicap, and I'm in a wheelchair, it's a heck of a roll in the heat over to the Chrome. So can you answer me why this is so? Why does it happen when all the promises were you were going to add more ADA and now we have less?
Yes, Dr. Fuller, you mentioned the promises. I don't recall the specifics of the promises, but the project on item that's in front of you for acceptance is our downtown infrastructure. This project was not on Main Street. This is on the, call it the backside of Main Street, from 2nd Street all the way to Newman Way. It's a brand new roadway, utility infrastructure, a plaza monument and a gateway plaza, plus an abundance of ADA accessible parking, both for vehicles, for vans in those parking lots. Essentially, the downtown Oakley is structured that our brand new parking lot will service all the customers, patrons of the businesses that are along Main Street. So we have, our project actually exceeds all of the building requirements in terms of the ADA accessibility. We have EV charging stations, even for ADA accessibility in the back of the building. We have over 10 EV charging stations that are, some of them are ADA accessible. So I'll be happy to show you, give you a tour of the project at a convenient time. But what you're referring to is ADA along Main Street. And these are two separate projects. When we constructed Main Street, that was in 2017. Again, generally, we don't put handicap parking along the streets. All of them are designed in our parking lots.
When I drive by there, any road, from driving west or east or anywhere, there's no way to access that parking lot. Not only that, it requires us to go through the back door, which is never a pleasant thing to contemplate. I don't know, I just can't approve it. I asked for a vicinity map, I got one that showed Main Street, and I got one that showed the parking lot. When you get it open and get it accessible, we can look at it again, but I can't help but say there was handicap parking taken out of the front of the bistro and put up with 2-hour parking. And now there's no handicap parking in front of the bistro. And you can't access it from the rear. There's no way to get a car back there. It's a chain link fence across the street. And there's, there's barricades as you go off of O'Hara into the parking lot. So maybe, I don't know, but maybe if you drive all the way down to Quatanos and enter there and drive all the way back, you can get to one. But right now, I can't see any access from Main Street, so I won't vote aye on it. When you get that all together, when people can drive in there and with some dignity, get out of their vehicles and go into the restaurant, then I'll look at it again, but I won't approve it now.
Mayor Williams, just for the benefit of everybody, the construction fences that Dr. Fuller mentioned, all of those are going to be coming out. We're just putting the finishing touches to the downtown ahead of the upcoming Summer Festival. So to access the parking lot, you can access from Journey Way, next to Bistro, opposite 2nd Street, O'Hara Avenue. The barricades are coming off, all the parking lots is open, and also Newman Way. So it's full accessibility throughout the campus. And that will be in a couple of weeks. Again, we're just putting finishing touches and it'll all be open. To the point, just for point of clarification about some ADA parking spaces that was along Main Street. If you recall, about 8 years ago or so, downtown Oakley didn't used to look this way. Didn't have curb gutter, sidewalk. Yes, businesses had painted, and we saw some resemblance of what would be a kind of a handicap parking space. It wasn't up to any code. Different businesses have done it, but as a part of our project, everything we do has to meet the latest ADA codes, the latest building codes, which we have done.
So if somebody wanted to go to the bistro and needed to park in handicap parking, where's the closest spot for them?
The closest parking lot to them is the parking lot west of O'Hara. We have a brand new, over 200 parking stalls there. There are sidewalks that can easily bring them to Bistro. We have handicap ramps at all intersections, all street intersections, clearly marked, visible. Again, I'll be happy to take anybody on a tour. It's fully accessible. Again, we just haven't opened it up because we're getting it ready for the Summerfest.
You can drive through it, right? Because I feel like I've driven through, once you're in it, can't you drive through everything?
Yes,
yeah, okay.
absolutely. You can, from east of Bistro, the journey-way, the roadway, runs parallel to the railroad right-of-way, comes all the way, connects to Norcross. You have intersection with O'Hara. That's open. It will be open. We will take out the barricades. You have multiple ways. All the parking lots are looped together. Again, they're fully accessible. As I said, we even have ADA parking spots for the EV chargers.
Is there a sign that whatever the entrance is there a street sign or any sign indicating handicap parking and going down there besides having to drive that? I don't know how wide it is, but when I drive those driveways, I just as soon not have to drive them because were obviously built in a year when cars were thinner. So, but bottom line, is there any sign anywhere on Main Street that, okay, you may have to drive much more than others, but you are crippled, so you have to drive farther than anybody else to a parking spot in the bistro, but we'll mark it. Now is there a sign there that points down handicap parking and then signs down at the bottom showing which way they can go?
That would be what we would call it wayfinding signs. At this moment, no, there is not. It's taken that once everybody gets through to the circulation and the parking lots and people find their way. Adding a sign to point to the parking, that's something we could do. That would not be a big deal to provide information from anybody driving on Main Street about the parkings in the back.
I need to add, I would suggest try it, but try being the only way you can be mobile or go any places on a wheelchair. And to do that, you have to hook up your wheelchair to the back of the van, and then you have to drive it down, and then pull down the wheelchair, get in it, and wheel yourself over to the bistro and come back. So you say, well, just go on your way. Let me just say, anybody that's disabled, it just isn't a matter of just go on your way. I'm just going to add that.
Understood. Again, our parking lot even has van accessible ADA parking spots.
I would have to assume that everything that the municipality does has standards, right? So they have to meet the highest. It's not like, I remember the ones that were over here, the ramp that was sort of wooden, sort of glued together sort of situation right across the street. So I would assume anything that we put in has to meet the highest requirements, and I'm sure there's certain guidelines that we have to follow as far as how close it has to be to entrances and exits to make it the most user-friendly and accessible. Am I correct on that? And do we have some sort of audits that get conducted? I realize that there's some old ADA compliance issues that we have to catch up on, which seems different from what this item is. So today, is there some sort of audit that on each project so that it can show that we're meeting the highest standards of ADA accessibility? Because I would assume we'd be subject to a lawsuit otherwise.
Absolutely. Short answer is absolutely. The new buildings, basically all the new buildings you see in downtown as a part of their building permit process, they have to meet California Building Code, all the ADA code, all the specifics of it, how many parking spot, how many ADA, the distances, all of that, they get actually designed as a part of the project, as a part of the design and development of it before it gets out there in the field and start the construction. That gets approved throughout the course of the project. It gets inspected. At the end of the project, when any of this building that you see, the owners come to get their occupancy permit, building inspectors go there again. One of the specific items is actually ADA accessibility. Check all of those things to the most recent state codes.
So a building permit has to be issued for like a parking lot like that too? So there has to be an inspection that happens, okay.
Yeah, and that's in disability culture known as compliance.
Yes.
Compliance. You're not really welcomed, but if you really have to have a place to park, we'll build it as cheaply as possible in a way that'll come about. It's the way it goes. We've been audited. We're $100 million in arrear of ADA services. We were well aware of that. We say we're going to take care of it in construction, and now you're asking me to approve construction that after all the things are said, you really just can't drive on the street and pull into a handicapped parking spot. Not without a lot of trouble, but you may be compliant, but I don't like it, and I don't think you're compliant, so I'll vote no.
Well, maybe it should be audited. I move approval of 4.9.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstention? All right, passes 4-1. All right, 4.13 was also you, Councilmember Fuller.
Yeah, same thing. In fact, when I was reading the budget, we looked for things that can keep our expenses down and what we can do. And we have a traffic signal department, from what I can read, within the budget. And it's required for maintenance and whatever when I go through it. So again, I'm just not happy with the idea that we're contracting out all the services. Not all of them, but a large number of services. I would much rather you meet and confer. I know we don't have an association here, but maybe someday. But meet and confer with the workers to see, can they handle this job, and can they be trained, and are they willing to be trained, and what would be the compensation for it? Somebody brought up, I won't say who, but somebody brought up, if nothing else, we can hire retired people to come in and work at the regular rate. So I'm same thing. So I don't want to belabor the point.
Madam Mayor, again, as I've said in the last few meetings when we had different contracts brought for your approval, we selectively trying to put the best product, best service for the community. This includes a combination of our in-house public works staffing and some contractor work, depending on the specifics of the matter. Traffic signal maintenance, this is a very highly specialized work. This is not something that we can send somebody to a junior college for 2 months and become a signal technician. It takes, and I checked this just since I expected to have this discussion, it takes about 4 years of education, over 8,000 hours of actual training to become a certified by State of California traffic signal electrician and technician. This isn't something, again, it would take an enormous amount of time for have anybody trained. That is many cities, even cities much larger than Oakley, use contractual services because it's impractical for them to have that in-house resources. And like I said, we want to be smart about how we deploy our resources and our funding for our services. Our traffic signals are critical part of our infrastructure. It's nothing, if a signal doesn't function, an accident happens, it creates enormous liability. I certainly don't want to take any chance in anybody getting hurt on a traffic signal because we just did a good job maintaining it. We've stayed on top of these signals. We have over 40 signals, and over the next 3 years, we're going to have 4 more brand new signals being installed, constructed in Oakley. So we're trying to deploy our resources in a smart way and get, provide the services we need. And it's not just the body. Let's say you get somebody trained. We just don't have the physical space to run a traffic signal maintenance operation. Just an example, the bucket truck, that truck you see, various Comcast, AT&T with the bucket, the back of it. To get a truck like that out the door costs you about $200,000. You need to have a kind of a warehouse to stock parts. This isn't something I can go to the local hardware store and get a controller cabinet or a video camera. So these are highly specialized things, and that's why there are contractors. That's what they do day in and day out. We service all of our traffic signals here monthly, quarterly, and annually on different maintenance schedule to make sure they're functioning as they should.
I have 2 follow-up questions then for that. Since it's contracted out, do they have to have some sort of indemnity agreement with us so that if there's something that we then find is because they didn't do a good job maintaining the lights and there's an accident that happens, is the city held liable, or is there some sort of co-insurance that happens?
All of our contracts, maintenance contracts, clearly have the indemnity clauses. We check, we have a staff. Dr. Fuller mentioned that we had a traffic control or traffic maintenance division per se. We have a maintenance division. It's not specialized to traffic. We contract out the traffic signal maintenance component. But no, they provide us reports. We document all of those things because it happens time to time. An accident happens at intersection, lawsuits got involved, and they want to see the record. Okay, when was the last time this signal's maintained? We can clearly, there's a checklist we provided. I mean, there's a method to the madness, so to speak, how we address our maintenance issues to make sure cities' interests are protected.
So then what about to the point of asking any recently retired people if they wanted to take that on? I would assume they would have to maintain a license for all of this stuff. They would have to have some sort of warehouse.
Yes, I mean, again, this is something, it's not so much retiree or non-retiree. A person could do it, but like I said, it takes several years of schooling, over 8,000 hours of practice and experimentation, actually working on the field to get your certification to be able to independently, when we have a service call, okay, this person goes and services a truck. Because those cabinets you see at the intersection, some of them painted pretty pictures, inside of this all electronics. This is not a mechanized operation. And electrician needs to know specifically how each of the controller cards work. It's like your computer. And because of that, again, it's just very specialty work.
And it doesn't look like this went out to RFP, right? You guys are just reaching out to the companies that you know, but potentially, if we had a member in our community who did this, they could have bid on this job at some point?
We went through an RFP process about 4 or 5 years ago when we selected this firm. And in prior year, we've done RFPs and firms proposed, and we go through the selection process. DC Electric has performed excellent for us, and it was a staff feeling that we want to keep them, continue the continuity of the service.
Okay. Do I have a motion on this one?
Move approval 4.13.
First.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstain? All right, item passes 4-1. Okay, 4.16, I am pulling this and handing this over to Ms. Veronis.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the council for your patience. I know that this item has come back a few times on the agenda. The holdup on it really was that we were waiting for title to be corrected. There were several deeds that had to be prepared on the seller's side to correct and perfect titles. So now that that's been done, our title company could prepare the grant deed, which is now before you. And this effectually would be a resolution to accept that grant deed, which really is a formality to have it recorded with the Contra Costa County Recorder's Office. That concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, great. Do I have a motion to approve item 4.16?
I move approval of 4.16.
Okay, we have a first.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, item passes 5-0. All right, moving on to item 5. This is our public hearings. We will hear item 5.1, Live Oak Industrial Park, TM 09-23, DR 07-23. This is the request for approval of a tentative map 09-23 for condominium purposes and design review, DR 07-23 for the construction of 8 warehouses, APN 037-100-065. Ken Strelo, our Community Development Director, will be presenting this item, but we have to pause for 1 sec.
And I'd like to recuse myself on this one.
Great, so we will start once he's out of the room, please. All right, perfect. So we are now ready to receive the staff report.
Excellent. Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. This project is called the Live Oak Industrial Park, and it is located at 5400 Live Oak Avenue. Live Oak Avenue, this is approximately it's a few hundred feet south of Main Street and just north of the existing UPS facility that is on the east side of Live Oak Avenue. There we go. The entitlements or the applications that were requested for this project are twofold. The first one is for a tentative map. It includes subdivision into 4 parcels and also condominiums for the buildings on site. So each of the buildings would be divided into 2 suites. The design review application is for the architecture on the buildings and development of the actual site plan. And as you can see, the 2 buildings consist of 2 suites, or I'm sorry, the 8 buildings consist of 2 suites each of approximately 3,775 square feet. The site also includes on-site parking of approximately 80 parking spaces. The general plan land use designation for the site is light industrial. The zoning is consistent with that designation. The zoning is also light industrial district. The property is currently vacant. There are no structures or buildings on the property, and it is bordered by additional vacant land directly to the north, that UPS Center directly to the south, senior apartments directly to the east, and storage yards and other types of light industrial uses across Live Oak to the west. On May 7th, last month, the Planning Commission held a public hearing for this project, and they voted 5-0 to adopt a resolution that recommended the City Council adopt the project as conditioned. During that meeting, I believe there was one public comment from the landowner to the south for UPS. They wanted to make sure this project was doing the same frontage improvements that project was required to do. The answer to that was yes. The frontage would match that frontage, and they would dedicate just as much frontage. There was also questions on the types of uses that may be allowed at this site, because there are no uses proposed at this time. And those would be typical light industrial uses, of which there are permitted uses by right and conditionally permitted uses. So any conditionally permitted uses that may be proposed in the future would require approval of a conditional use permit. The total site is 4.66 acres. The two lots that are nearest Live Oak Avenue are 1 acre each. The two lots behind that are 1.2 acres. Those extra 0.2 acres go towards a drainage easement in the back where there will be a treatment swale. We already talked about the 2 suites. As far as the proposed tentative map goes, the parcels being proposed on it meet all of the requirements of the light industrial district, minimum sizing and frontage requirements. And then with the tentative map, these are sort of summaries of findings. The proposed use and intensity, in other words, the coverage of the buildings and the uses that would be permitted in the light industrial zone are consistent with that light industrial designation. This just shows the site plan. This is just a line drawing site plan showing. So each of those blocks of kind of 2 rectangles are one of the buildings. So there you can see how there's 2 buildings on each parcel, each divided into 2 suites. And this shows some elevations of the buildings. The ones that are near Live Oak Avenue have a few more architectural elements on them since they're more visible to public view. But this shows sort of there's a wainscot along the lower portion of the buildings closest to Live Oak. The buildings do have some screening parapets along the interior sides and along the Live Oak side as well. In our analysis, the materials and the design of the buildings generally meet the light industrial district's design guidelines. This is an illustrative landscape plan. The green on the right is the treatment area I was talking about earlier that's made up of the combined 0.4 acres. And then other green areas are where there's shrubs and bushes. You can see the trees are the dark green blotches. Purple areas are the buildings. And there are trees lining the sidewalk, which is along Live Oak Avenue, which is separated from Live Oak Avenue by that tree strip and a parkland strip of additional landscaping. This is a rendering of the site, kind of looking, I guess, from the southwest it would be. So you're looking over Live Oak Avenue to the bottom right there. That would be the UPS site and some of the parking on site. So there's an existing wall in the back. That wall would remain, separating the residential. There's chain link fences between the 2 light industrial uses, and there's an existing chain link fence on the north property adjacent to the city's detention basin. That would be extended along down the northern property line towards Live Oak Avenue. As far as CEQA goes, the project falls under the categorical exemption of infill development, less than 5 acres, consistent with the general plan, and it has access to utilities. So if approved, the requirement would be to file a notice of exemption for this project. This is a summary of the analysis, and the staff report includes some more narrative on the analysis. The resolution includes the actual findings that make up that analysis. So again, the project as proposed, the development and the buildings are consistent with the general plan and zoning districts, both represented by light industrial. And the project as designed is consistent with the City of Oakley's commercial and industrial design guidelines. And that completes my staff report. Staff does recommend approval of the project through adoption of the proposed resolution. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Mr. Cole Avernaz, he is the project applicant, is in the audience today. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from the City Council? Councilmember Meadows.
I assume with that driveway, semi-truck can get around?
Yeah, all of our plans go through truck turning radius analysis.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
So with this plan, it looks like potentially there could be 16 separate uses in there, right?
That is
theory?
correct.
Okay. And do they have the option to not subdivide like into the 2 suites, or would that be what happens no matter
Yeah,
what?
it's a good question. As it's currently proposed, when they were to do their final map, it would include those suites as needed. maybe the applicant could answer this, but perhaps if a potential user came forward before that time and wanted to occupy an entire building, they would have that option, or they could just purchase both suites.
Okay, great. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was one of the sites that when we did the economic development, when we had the consultants come in, wasn't this one of the sites that they identified that we should do keep as light industrial? And
You know what, I would be dishonest if I told you I knew
Okay.
the answer to that off the top of my head.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the ones, but okay, great. That's it for my questions. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, great. So I will now open the public hearing. And we do have a couple public comments on this. So I will call up the first speaker, Rich Ladera.
My name is Richard Ladera. I own the facility south of this project, and I'm 100% for it. My only question is it possible to delete the word condominium? I see no reason to have a condominium warehouse, just warehousing. I mean, it scares you, especially if some of these places are for sale. What's to say that somebody buys a place and turns it into a, changed it around, kind of like an ADU type of deal. Don't shake your head. I'm just saying, it's possible. So maybe it might be consideration to lose the word condominium. Everything else is great. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Paul Seeger.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this item tonight. So I see that according to the staff report that this project claims to fit into the infill exemption to CEQA. I don't know, but I felt that I should point out that that this project is smack dab in the middle of a California Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, SB 535 Disadvantaged Communities Census Tract. This is the only one in the city of Oakley, and it's Census Tract 601330205. Just briefly, SB 535 stems from California's Proposition 65. Proposition 65 requires businesses to provide warnings to Californians about significant exposures to chemicals that cause cancer, birth defects, or other reproductive harm. Many of these items would fit into the light industrial nature of the zoning. These chemicals can be products that Californians purchase in their homes and workplaces, or that are released into the environment. By requiring that this information be provided, Prop 65 enables Californians to make informed decisions about their exposures to these chemicals. Senate Bill 535 reports that this project's census tract is an officially designated disadvantaged community. SB 535 must requires this project to address how the project will improve the health and quality of life for the community. There's more than 7,000 people living in this census tract. And let's see, the last thing I wanted to add was that that in this SB 535 census tract, the percent of people living below twice the poverty level is higher than 69% of the census tracts in California. Cardiovascular diseases percentile for this particular census tract is 85.97, meaning that it is higher than 85.97 of the census tract in California. The asmus rate in this area is higher than 84% of the census tracts in California. Did just add an environmental justice component to your general plan. I hope that you take this seriously, and we will definitely, as a
Thank
Sierra
you. Sorry,
Club,
time is up.
we'll
Thank
be
you.
looking into this and track this
Thank you.
information.
All right, do I have any more public comments? All right, so we will close the public hearing portion of it. And now it's time for the council to deliberate. The applicant is here if that matters for anybody, if they want to hear any comments from the applicant. Councilmember Meadows.
So I like the project. I mean, this is something that we worked on as OMAC 30 plus years ago, and finally we're seeing it come into existence. I like that. This is what we need in Oakley. To address Rich's question about condominium, I don't think you're going to get, if you're worried about people living there, you're not going to get that, if that's what you're worried about. So, but I think it's a great project, and I support it.
Vice Mayor Shaw.
I agree. I think this is a different type of product than we have. I know there was some housing potentially looked at for this location, which was turned down, and by doing that, we left this option open, which ended up bringing us something different. When we talk about what it's going to bring to the community, it's jobs. It's it's a different type of product that we don't have here already, and so I absolutely support this. And condominium in the terms of housing, I can see why that's scary, but because it is split buildings, that's the term that's used generally in the land of real estate. So it doesn't mean that they can come in because it says condominium and live there. So they would have to, apply for all kinds of different things. And so I just wanted to set you a little bit at ease with that as well.
Councilmember Meadows.
Just following up on Vice Mayor Shaw's comment about jobs. It's jobs, but it also provides small spaces for our local businesses to work out of, which we don't have. It's very hard to find space in Oakley for the job creators. So this, like I said, is great.
Can I ask a question? I know questions are over, but I still have questions. So, based on the comment we just had about the CEQA and could we even make the determination? I mean, I assume when we said that it was an infill exemption, we did all the potential uses of light industrial, right? But I heard you say that we don't have any current tenants. So what's the sort of stance on that?
Sure. So when we're doing a CEQA analysis, or we're looking at whether a project requires an initial study or whether it meets any of the CEQA exemptions, we're looking at the proposal. So we're looking at the application submitted, the project being proposed at that time, and staff is running through any of the categorical exemption or statutory exemptions. If none of those apply, the project moves on to an initial study phase, which is when we hear about negative declarations or mitigated negative declarations or environmental impact reports. Those documents are the result of that. With this type of project, with the light industrial, there's permitted by right uses, and the way that our zoning code explains those is these are uses that are not expected to emit noise, dust, smoke, or anything like that. And then there are conditionally permitted uses, which some of them are listed, and then there's a catch-all that says these uses may emit, these types of uses. These types of things. Conditional use permits, again, are another discretionary type of approval. They go through their own analysis. So, no, when a shell building comes in, we're not looking at the worst case scenario of what use may occupy it in the future. We're looking at the proposal in front of us.
And were any of these concerns brought up during the Planning Commission?
None of these concerns. This is the first I've heard these concerns tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any further deliberation from anybody?
I move approval of 5.1 Live Oak Industrial Park.
All right, we have a first
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? 1. All right, the item passes. All right, we need to go get him. Welcome back. All right, we're moving on to item 5.2, adopt the resolution confirming the diagrams and assessments and ordering the levy and collection of the annual assessments for fiscal year 24-25 for the City of Oakley Street Lighting and Landscape Assessment District number 1. This will be presented to us by Kevin Rohani, our Public Works Director, City Engineer. We will first receive the staff report.
Mayor Williams, Vice Mayor Shaw, members of the council, I'm pleased to present you the report for our Lighting and Landscape Assessment District. This is the time of the year that we have come to you for nearly past 25 years since the inception of Oakley to start the renewal process for the city's Lighting and Landscape Assessment District. The first Lighting and Landscape Assessment District in the City of Oakley was approved by City Council back in July 2000, right after the incorporation of the city. And prior to that, it was Contra Costa County who had the similar thing. So this program has been in existence for decades. And the purpose of it is to fund parks, landscaping, and street light maintenance needs for the community. Each year, we prepare an engineer's report which outlines all the specifics of operation and maintenance of our system. And this works in concurrence with the city budget, which you will hear a little bit later this evening as a part of its approval process to make sure we have sufficient funds to maintain all of our infrastructure. As you know, our parks and landscaping is one of the jewels of the community. We want to make sure those are kept to the highest standard. For fiscal year 2024-2025, there are no increased assessments. As in the last year, all it is, the increases are based on the previously approved consumer price index to the Bay Area. At the May 14th City Council meeting was presented with a report and arranged this evening as a public hearing for this program. At the close of the public hearing, Mayor should ask City Clerk if any written protest has been received on the subject matter. If we have received over 50% protest, the council may decide to cancel the whole Lighting and Landscape District program and process completely. However, if less than 50% protest has been received by City Clerk, Council may decide to continue this program. At the conclusion of the public hearing, staff recommends that City Council adopt the resolution ordering the levy and collection of the annual 2024-2025 assessments for lighting and landscape. That concludes my report.
Okay, great. Any questions from the City Council? Okay, at this time I will open the public hearing and receive any public testimony. Are there any property owners that would like to turn in a written protest regarding the levy of street lighting and landscape assessment district number 1 assessments for fiscal year 2024-2025? Okay, seeing none, I will now close the public hearing. City Clerk, is there a majority protest regarding the levy of street lighting and landscape assessment district number 1 assessments for fiscal year 24-25?
Thank you, Mayor. There are no written protests submitted. Thereby, I declare that there is no majority protest and the proceedings may continue. Thank you.
All right, so now is time for the council to deliberate. Any deliberation? Great. Would anyone like to make a motion since there's nothing to summarize about our deliberation?
I move approval of item 5.2. Adopt
Okay.
the resolution confirming it, the diagrams and assessments.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? All right, the item passes 5-0. All right, we are moving on to item 6, the regular calendar. Item 6.1, consideration of resolutions adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 proposed operating budget, statement of financial policies, appropriations limit, adopting the fiscal year 24-25 capital budget and 5-year capital improvement program, also known as the CIP, for fiscal years 24-25 through 2028-29, and making findings related thereto, and approving additional sworn police positions on a temporary basis and the master salary schedule. This item will be presented by Jerry Tejada, our Administrative Services Director.
Good evening. Sorry for the long title.
Seriously.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Tonight I am proud to present to you our fiscal year 24-25 budget. We'll just jump right in. So our proposed budget highlights, there's no changes from the budget study session that was held at the first meeting in May. So we will go through this as quickly as we can. So our proposed budget highlights is just under $77 million in total citywide expenditures for our budget. 35 million is general fund expenditures. And just as a side note, that $35 million includes a one-time transfer of $4 million. And then we have 13 million, just above 13 million, proposed for new funding and capital improvement expenditures. So just a few changes here to staffing. One police officer position was added for the July 1st budget. That will bring us to a total of 42 sworn officers. And just to give you a breakdown, that's 32 police officers, 7 sergeants, 2 lieutenants, and 1 chief. The budget proposes to reclassify 1 engineering tech to an assistant engineer. It proposes to reclassify 1 facility maintenance tech to a public works foreman in our public works department. And then one more item that didn't make the slideshow, I apologize. In community development, we're asking to remove the planning manager position and add a senior planner classification. So we'll talk about our transfers out. We'll focus on the general fund. We have just over $6 million in transfers planned out of the general fund. As was mentioned previously, $4 million of that is to capital projects for our library project. About $2.1 million is to our streets rehab fund. That would help fund Laurel Road, CIP 280. 100,000 of that is to stormwater. And then 21,500 is to our LAD number 187 and Fund 187, and 3,500 to Fund 180. And both of those LADs and the stormwater are anticipated to have a deficit budget this year, and therefore needing a general fund transfer in order to cover expenditures. So our general fund revenue is anticipated to be about $32 million, and you can see on the graph here how that breaks out. Interfund charges is our largest at 39%, property tax at 33%, and then the next largest would be sales tax at 10%, and then franchise fees, development fees, and then other revenues and taxes. Our general fund expenditures are expected to be $35 million. That includes the $4 million one-time transfer. And as you can tell, this is broken out here by where that is spent, which department is spent in. 44% of that goes to our public safety, 15% to public works, 7% to community development, and then the next largest there is the 18% to transfers, and that is due to that one-time transfer for this year. So just a quick breakdown of our general fund. Our recurring revenues is $32 million. Our reoccurring expenditures is $31 million. We anticipate an operating surplus of $1 million this year. But in addition to that, we're also proposing that one-time transfer of available fund balance of $4 million. This will still leave our estimated fund balance after our 30% reserve at $4.2 million. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our general fund 30% reserve. We took some time this year to go through the Government Finance Officers Association. We refer to it as GFOA. They have an online tool that helps cities determine what is a good guideline or average reserve for those cities. And what it does is it helps cities measure risk based on multiple things. I named some of the large ones here for us: revenue stability, capital needs, vulnerability to extreme events, and expenditure volatility. So as a leadership team, we took this risk management test over a course of several weeks, and we tried to identify some of those major risks that the city would have. And then we also tried to identify anything that we would have that would mitigate those risks and lessen the risk for us. So as we went through it, some of the large things that created a little bit higher numbers for us, we do rely on one or two major revenue sources. In the downturn in the economy in 2009, 2010, our revenues decreased by almost 40%. So for us, having only two major revenue sources is a very large risk for our city. We have large capital projects. We're in need of millions of dollars to fund really important capital projects that we talk about almost every meeting probably over the next several years, and we don't have the revenue currently to pay for all of those needs. We do not have an established reserve currently for our vehicles, our equipment, our deferred maintenance on buildings. This is part of the reason we're implementing internal service funds, as we've talked about previously, and over the next several years, those reserves will start to establish. And then we have several funds that rely on our general fund for revenue. We've talked about stormwater, and it's going to continue to rely on general fund here in the near future. We have IT that completely relies on our general fund. Our street maintenance is funded significantly by the general fund, and our police services. So with that, our score ended up being 30. I've included here on the PowerPoint what the analysis or analytical guidance, GFOA calls it a guidance, right? So these aren't mandatory. These are just the guidance and the general guidelines that we look at. So when we get there, our score is 30. We fall in that 25 to 31 range, which means we face a moderate to high level of risk. And so GFO's recommendation is that our reserve be between 26 and 35%. We're right in the middle of that right now at 30%. So I just wanted to share that with the council. It has been an ongoing project that we've been working on because we want to make sure that we have sufficient reserves, but we also don't want to overfund our reserves. So if we talk about our 10-year plan and a 10-year available fund balance, you can see here as a percent of operating expenditures, our 30% reserve is the reddish color box there, and you can see we maintain that 30% reserve. And then the blue column there is what we have above that 30% reserve. This depicts, obviously we always want revenues to exceed expenditures, and in every year except that following year, fiscal year 32-33, that happens. In 32-33, we do see that expenditures will exceed revenues by just over $200,000. It is something that staff recommends we keep an eye on. At the last meeting, I think we went through multiple things that are added in that 10-year plan for expectations. It includes police officers. It includes more maintenance staff to fund a library. It includes operational needs for that library building. It includes a lot of things. So staff, we tried to be really realistic with what the needs are and to show that. So I do want to point out that there is that 1 year that does slightly exceed. And I think in the next few years, that's something we will keep an eye on. We'll see where revenues are going. Are they coming in above planned? Are expenditures coming in below? And then we'll make some recommendations. So here's the CIP projects. These are new funding for the year. So this is not all the CIP projects. That's on that really large spreadsheet that's towards the end of the budget. But I just wanted to point out the new funding that's being allocated this year. So we have our Laurel Road widening at $8 million. Our curb gutter sidewalk at $150,000, our traffic signal at $100,000, our traffic calming and our ADA at $50,000 each, our Oakley Library and Community Center project at $4.5 million, our amphitheater speaker project at $150,000, and our O'Hara Avenue widening project at $175,000. Just wanted to point out that we did receive the CSMFO Operating Budget and Excellence Award again for fiscal year 23-24, and we will apply for 24-25, and staff anticipates that we will receive that again. And then there's several resolutions, as you could tell from the very long title, that are also in here. So one of those is the salary schedule. CalPERS has a requirement that council adopt that mastery salary schedule each year or anytime it changes and be made available to the public. So we do post that on our website. It includes a 3% cost of living for our sworn staff, which was approved May 24th, 2022 in their MOU. It includes a 2% cost of living increase for miscellaneous staff, which was approved June 14th, 2022 in the benefits resolution. It includes the city manager salary increase that is up on a separate item tonight for approval, and it includes the increase that was approved January 23rd, 2024 to the city council stipend, which won't be effective until December of 2024 when the new council takes seat. Just to give you a little update, so last year we talked about the overhire concept with our police department and overhiring 2 temporary positions. That resolution was only good for the fiscal year 2024, so this is asking you to extend that resolution for another year. I just thought we'd take the time at this moment to give kind of a current update. Last time we were in front of you, I think, talking about recruits and the potential of having 8 positions open in the coming year, and really not having a bunch of applicants in the hopper. And somehow that's changed very rapidly, which is great for us. So we currently have 38 sworn officers, but 2 to 3 of them are on long-term injury, so 35 to 36 active officers. 4 full-time openings that need to be filled. Again, 2 to 3 of those are out for an undetermined amount of time, and then we have 1 potential retirement. So we have, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish positions that potentially 7 to 8 positions that potentially could be open by the end of this calendar year. So what we have in process, we have a lateral starting with us June 17th. We're through the process, offer letters are signed, and they will be here being sworn in on June 17th. We have 2 laterals with an anticipated start date of August, early August, hopefully. So that's exciting. Those are in process, so I don't want to make any commitments or promises until we get through the process. It is a long process. We have 1 recruit that will be going to the July Academy, and we have 2 recruits that we've identified that will start in the November Academy for Contra Costa County. And again, all of these are dependent on clearing background as well as graduating the academy before we can bring them on board. So we have a lot of exciting things ahead in our police department hiring. So with that overhire and the concept this year, unlike last year, there is not an anticipated fiscal impact. 2 of our long-term officers on leave are no longer in a paid status, so we do not anticipate needing to have additional funding to overhire 2 officers. I do like to point out that it does bring a little bit of risk to the city by us authorizing 2 overhires. We would have 44 positions instead of 42. If any of our long-term injuries are able to return to full duty, and we've already overhired the 2 officers, we have the potential of having 44 paid officers. If that came to that point, we would definitely be back in front of council asking or proposing solutions on how to fund that. So staff recommendations, we have 4 resolutions that need to be approved tonight. Approve a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 24-25 proposed operating budget, statement of financial policies, and appropriation limit. The second, approve a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 24-25 recommended capital budget and 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2024-25 through 28-29. Approve a resolution to adopt the proposed salary schedule effective July 7th, including the approval of the senior planner classification, and approve a resolution authorizing 2 additional sworn police positions on a temporary basis. And with that, I am open for questions.
Any questions from City Council? Councilmember Meadows.
I don't have any questions. I just comment that I like what you've put together. I think it's actually a little bit clearer than, and maybe it's because it's my 4th year, but a little bit clearer than I've seen in the past. I also like that we are over hiring 2 officers again this year. So thank you. Good job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Fuller.
Yes, first, the presentation, as promised, is on the budget. It's exemplary. I'm very much appreciated. Mr. McMurray said it would be, and you, and I found it very easy to follow and go through, and I appreciate that. Broken down, I think anybody that wants to know what our expenditures are in the city and how they're allocated will be very much placated with the way it's presented, what's all that's there, the way you've listed it all. So it's very much appreciated on that aspect. It's gone through. My next question is, are we going to try to move on all? I'd like the idea of staff recommendation to look at 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't want to look at 1, 2, 3, 4 unless everybody else wants to look at all of them at once. I would like to take each one separately, which we've done in the past. If you want to go there, the operating budget looks good. The financial policies look good, and the appropriations budget looks good. I do have a couple of questions. Well, first off, Creekside isn't there. So the expenditure fund on what is it, 120, 115? There was nothing there, but I'm looking through it, the city clerk, I was kind of bewildered with it, pages 102 through 105, and I think that falls under the general outlay. We're going there. We don't have the metric for PRAs, and I'm not quite sure why we don't, but the PRAs would seem to be a large part of the city clerk's responsibilities, and the city clerk just doesn't have any latitude on it. Somebody turns in a PRA, she's supposed to, or the city clerk is supposed to respond and get it there. So with the fact that we're not measuring how many PRAs are there seems to be short-circuiting the city clerk's office. Also, I'm a big advocate of, hopefully someday the state will reimburse us for the PRA requirement, but if we don't have any data on it, then how are we going to assess it? So I don't know why it's there, but maybe somebody can answer that along the way. But before we go any further, page 95, I am very happy to see an IT help person. I'm taking that's the person that can be called, dialed in, and we can get IT help. I think that's a great step for the city to go it there. So we're just, with to go through the approval of the resolution, we are giving a 2% raise to the non, and a 3%, which one is which? And
So the 3% is our Police Officers Association, and the 2% is all other general staff that are non-sworn staff. And if we remember back to 2022 when we adopted that, over the 5-year term that those were both adopted, it was a 9% increase, and it was a 9% increase for both both units. One of them chose to go 2 years without and 3 years with a 3%, and the other chose to go 1 year without and a 3% in the first year and 2% each additional year.
Okay.
So overall, everybody got 9%.
All right, then, why aren't we assessing PRAs with the city clerk's office on the metric? In other words, when we looked at performance, when I looked through performance, I looked through it all, and PRAs aren't there, and it says it's not measured metric, but it just seems like there's a lot of work. I am not sitting in City Hall, but just from my gut says that there's PRAs that are getting uncounted that would seem to be a lot of work for the city clerk.
I think performance measures is still a fairly new thing for us. I believe it was just added a couple budget cycles ago. And I know, speaking from experience in my department, we're still trying to figure out what to include there and how to get those numbers. So I'm sure we can take that note and figure something out.
Yes.
Our city clerk would like to add something.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Yes, in terms of, wasn't quite finished.
But the city clerk would like to respond to that question, I think. So if we would allow her the time to
Wait,
respond.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I haven't finished. Are you just butting in with a question?
No, the city clerk would like to respond to the question you just asked. So I would like to allow her to be able to do that.
Well, yes, if she'd like to.
Yes,
respond.
she pushed the button, so she would like to respond.
Thank you, Mayor. I am in agreement with everything that Ms. Tejada said. I just wanted to add that we average around 100 Public Record Act requests per year. Leading up to this particular year, we've seen a substantial increase. We're not sure at this point if that number is due to us, the increase, if that's due to us bringing on an electronic system that we now use for records requests. Whereas prior to that system, departments were handling some of those requests on their own, and at this time, most of those requests are being funneled through our electronic system. So we're still kind of vetting the numbers, so to speak, and we hope in future years to include that information for you. But in general, I would say about an average of 100 requests at least per year.
Thank you for the information. Yes, I would like to see that metric. And metric added, give us a better idea. There, in terms of, this is probably it's a tender subject for you, but we had in June 2023, we had a report of 3 significant deficiencies in terms of budget on our budget report, and there were three lesser notes that were there, plus some others. But have we resolved those deficiencies? One of them was, especially was concerning because it involved investment reports that we give quarterly reports, but it's saying that we should be doing, not necessarily to us, but overall monthly investment reports coming about. So have we resolved those 3?
So the significant deficiencies you're referring to is from our audit, our annual audit, not from our budget document. And we have worked very hard this year to complete those and fix those. Off the top of my head, I can't quote exactly what all 3 were. One of them was for our fee schedule, and I think you guys remember those very long meetings on our fee schedule. So we've tried to fix that fee schedule. In addition, we've made sure all departments are well aware of that fee schedule so that we're all charging the right things. I apologize, Dr. Fuller, which one did you bring up?
I brought up the investment one, but thank you.
Yes.
It came up. There's one, if you want to go directly to budget, that popped up, but it said we should get away from, basically it says we should get away from an incremental budget, and we're still doing incremental budgets. So are we going to get away from the concept of looking at a prior budget and then kind of trying to go envision something new, or are we just going to continue with the incremental budget? How much more is it going to increase and put it forward?
So I wouldn't necessarily say we do an incremental budget in the sense of we just increase by a certain percentage. We definitely, every department spends time looking at their budget and determining what is needed and what is necessary for that department. So some departments might have you know, a 1 or 2% increase, and others might have a 4 or 5% increase, just dependent on the needs of the department. So we don't just incrementally increase the budget by a percentage. We actually look at every line item and determine what we need as a department for that line item.
Okay, but so I guess the question is, and I think you've answered it, but if somebody in the city clerk's office, because it seems like I'm picking on the city clerk's office, but comes up with a great plan to invest in AI that'll do all the minutes and do everything that's there, but it's going to take a substantial initial investment on it. And I'm not advocating that. I'm just coming up as an example. Would it be considered for an outlay to increase that amount, a substantial amount above a COLA or cost of my living?
So anything that is a large add to the budget, our current amount is over $50,000. We actually have a form that we required the departments to complete and to give us all the reasons why, right? Here's what I need, here's all the reasons why we need that. And those are all presented at the same time to, I review them, the city manager reviews every single one of them, the department directors, we talk about them, and we have to determine what the budget can hold, right? Because not everybody can have everything, and we determine what gives the biggest benefit to the citizens of Oakley. And so we do review those on an annual basis, and they do come separately to us on a form, so they're not just buried in somebody's line item somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? I have just one question. Mostly it's kind of related to a couple things that we've been hearing in public comments. And I'm going to specifically maybe look at our ARPA funds, because that seems like the one place where if there's going to be something that we can move around in the budget as we're finding out we're not having projects come online, then, you know, could there be any consideration for that summer camp comment that we had today? I've heard a couple different things about just not having enough staffing. I point them back to the school district too, because there's, you know, that's where they're going to school. But is there any way that we can, if some of these funds, I know we've had to reallocate because they have to get spent so that we keep them. So could we potentially just keep in mind that there's a couple different, I mean, obviously we have some very vocal seniors who are coming too. So could we potentially, if some of this money doesn't come through, the ARPA funding, I would think would be the best place to sort of decide as a council where we wanted to reallocate some of that stuff?
Yeah, so I'm trying to find the ARPA page.
Oh yeah,
here.
sorry, I should have given you the page number. It's 152, I think.
Thank you. So with the ARPA funding, as you remember, we did a bunch of reallocations last year around mid-year.
Yeah.
I think the plan would be to bring that back at mid-year again, see where we're currently at. You can kind of see where we've allocated the funding to on page 152, but it doesn't show you how much we've spent. So much of this is being spent. And, you know, I think the largest portion is that $3 million that's to the library that obviously hasn't been spent but's been allocated. I think the only other funding that potentially has some wiggle room is what was allocated to technology enhancements as we start to complete phases. We're almost there. A few more weeks, complete phases of our EERP system. We'll have a better understanding of the needs there and what kind of funding would be additional. But where it's been allocated currently, a lot of it has been spent.
Okay, perfect. I'm just asking to see, I mean, people come to us all the time, right, and say, well, why can't you just move money here? So I guess I'm just trying to identify if there are any buckets of money that would be flexible should a majority of the council say, you know what, actually this is really important. And to me, this seems like the easiest place to get it from, because this budget's pretty, I mean, it's down to the penny on most of these things, and I don't know how we're going to even pay for some of them in that. So just wanting to have some thought to, if there is some reallocation, where would be the best place. So perfect. I appreciate it. Any other questions from anybody?
Number one, right?
Any? We haven't, I don't think we've made a decision to take them.
If I can make a quick comment
Yes.
before we start approval, you should have received 2 pages, page
Yes.
247 and 257. There was some errors on those pages, so we've corrected them and added them to the budget. Thank you for those who found them.
I would move to approve a resolution to adopt fiscal year 24-25 proposed operating budget statement of financial policies and appropriations limit.
Second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second on item 1. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the item passes 5-0. Do I have a motion on item 2, approve a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 24-25 recommended capital budget and 5-year capital improvement plan for
Move
fiscal
approval.
years?
Wait, may I ask? We were just talking about number 1, and I thought that was it. I would like to talk about number 2 and ask questions, unless you want me to ask questions for 2, 3, and 4 too. I mean, we didn't. So if you're just going to bogart it through, I'm not appreciative of that. I do have a few questions and comments.
Well, I think we were asking questions. You asked questions about salary. So I was under the impression that we were asking questions on everything.
Well, then
And
I'll ask an
Councilmember
additional question about 2, 3, and 4, because that's what I've sat right here and clarified. Are we going to talk about 1, 2, 3, and 4 at once, or 1? And then the answer was 1. So I'll approve of 1. But I'll just go ahead. I have more questions about 2, 3, and 4. And so just to go through, and number 1, since I think some of the reason why we're pushing through is why do we submit our bids in the manner that we do with the capital improvement budget?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. When we call for bids?
Yes. In other words, we're going to approve a budget. We're going to go out. We're going to go out to bid. How do we get that to the bid phase?
I'm going to allow Mr. Rohani to answer that question.
Dr. Fuller, when we prepare a project, finish a design, have it get ready to go out to bid, we advertise the project publicly through multiple sources. We send it to notices. First, we give it to city clerk. That's been published in newspapers. We send it to all the plan rooms in the Bay Area, basically from Sacramento to San Jose and any parts between. Every county has a plan room. So every plan room, all the contractors go to plan rooms to get information about what city has what project to bid. So the notification gets sent to all of them. The bid period starts. In fact, CIP 280, the Laurel Road widening project, is being bid as we speak. And at your next council meeting in July, I'll be presenting you a report for award of a contract for that. We opened bid for that project 27th of this month. So that's our process to bid projects.
Well, is there any reason why the last meeting we had was about your contracting bids or contracting specifications, and you listed certain items that you've gone through and they met the standard. So why can't we do that with labor? Why can't we meet with labor? We just had somebody up that's talking about wage theft, and we're going through it. This California State Attorney General is worried about wage theft and labor violations, and we're finding out that I also have not heard any really strong things about what the labor has to say. So why couldn't we just come up with a project labor agreement before we go out to bid to make sure we're getting the specifications of what's involved? Is there any reason why we could not do that?
And Dr. Fuller, that's a policy decision for the broader council. If that's something the council wants to entertain, we have to have, again, a lot more involved discussion to be had. The impacts of such a issue on our project's bidding, ultimately, if that's the wishes of the council and it's fully vetted, that can be incorporated into our bid documents. Right now, for the longest time, all of our projects we bid, from a multi-million-dollar project to a $100,000 project, they meet fully to all state requirements. We require prevailing wage. Again, and I've said before, we run a tight ship on our public works projects, bidding process, verifying records, payment records, certified payroll. If you recall, about 2 years ago on our downtown project, it was about fall of 2022 when we brought a report for award. You had some concern about your perspective. As a result, the council requested that we bring a peer reviewer to peer review all the payrolls that the staff review. So we brought the outside consultant, paid them. They peer reviewed all of the certified payroll record. I'm pleased, to report that was completely done with a clean bill of health without any irregularities. So we check these things. Yes, those things happen. I'm not naive to say that's just the nature of construction. I'll make sure on our projects, anything under our purview, there is none of those issues going on. I cannot speak for developers and.
I'll take that as an answer to yes, we could arrange that if we so wanted to. In addition, I think you already know my position on the $50,000 for a $100 million deficit. In terms of that, everybody says, well, we've got to have an audit, and we do it, and we have an audit, and we're $100 million in arrears, and I bet you if we did it again, we'd be at $150 million in arrears, and you're always going to have 4 votes, and I get it. I understand that, and it's just going to have to be another way. We're going to have to bring this city up to speed with ADA. You're just plain ignoring us, and I get it. Also, I don't see anything for art. I don't see anything further for the community. The seniors are correct. We need to look at CIPs. I've always been somewhat hesitant in the matter that, yes, we'll put it in the library. They're right. They need 11,000 feet. There is a building even in here that in the city, Las Dunas, that county building over there. It's a large building. It doesn't seem to be used. Something like that. But we need to look at that in terms of it, and also in terms of art projects to get things through. So I will be voting no, but if we mainly, and also looking at what we can do to change the policy in terms of bids involving labor.
Again, aside from the issue with the labor, you mentioned that we've ignored, Dr. Fuller, we don't ignore anything. You've been a part of the process. We've had planning commission here. All of our CIP program was fully vetted, discussed over the past many months. You're well aware of our resource structure here in Oakley. We don't have unlimited funds. There's always competing interest. If you want East Cypress Road done, something has to give. We can't spend $10 million on project A, and that has to, something got to be impacted. So we're aware of it, and I fully agree with you. 100 million shortfall, 50,000 is a drop in the bucket, but at least it's a drop in the bucket. We could say, well, sorry, we put 0 in there. So I think we are doing what we can with the resources available while focusing on some of the highest priority projects that the broader council has for the community. As far as seniors, again, maybe that's a separate discussion, but just for the benefit of everybody, over the past few years, the city have done substantial investment at the current senior center. Just to name a few, putting a new roof on it. And seniors can tell you all the issues with the leaky roof, putting a new HVAC system, internal fixing the kitchen, flooring, doors, freezers. We're there on a regular basis fixing that building. So to say, some may say we don't care or just we let the seniors buy, that's just disingenuous. I wouldn't appreciate that notion that we do nothing. We have our staff, public works staff basically takes care of that building, and we're on it all the time. Regarding the art, again, would have to be a broader discussion by the council and funding and priorities if we want to put arts as a part of a CIP. But right now, our focus has been our top projects. Priority was East Cypress Road and Laurel Road, which, again, East Cypress under construction, and at your July 9th, I'll bring you a report for Laurel Road award.
Okay, I won't bring, we got 4.9 then, and thank you for your answers.
Oh, sorry, I missed the first. Did you first? All right.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Is this just for item 2, or are we going to be asking questions on item 3 next?
I'm sorry, we lost.
Okay. All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
What,
Abstentions?
may I ask the parliamentarian, we approved number 2, right?
1 and 2. We just approved 1 and 2.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We're up to number 3. Thank you.
Do I have a motion for number 3?
I move approval of item number 3.
Great. We have a first. Do I have a
Second.
second? First and a second on item 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? This also passes 5-0.
I move approval of item 4.
All right.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second on item 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Noes?
My vote
Right.
for number 2 should be nay.
Okay, I think that was 5-0 for 4. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Verify marking in 241. Thank you.
All right. We're going to push through to 6.2 because we're going to take a quick break for 6.3. So if everybody can bear with me for item 6.2, adopt a resolution approving the third amendment to employment agreement between the City of Oakley and Joshua McMurray. And we are going to pass this off to our Assistant City Attorney, Elizabeth, please.
Hello, I am presenting today in Mr. Cole's stead. So I see that there was a staff report prepared for your review and analysis. Our city manager, Mr. McMurray, entered originally into an employment contract in his current position November 10th, 2021. Since that employment contract was signed in 2021, there have been 2 amendments to the agreement. The first amendment increased the city manager's salary to $277,750, and the second amendment provided for an automatic 2-year extension to the agreement that would be renewed on July 1st of each year, absent any direction from City Council on the June 1st of that renewal year to take alternative action. This amendment has 2 substantive items that would, again, amend his current contract. The first being a 5% increase in the city manager's salary, which would change our city manager's base salary to $291,375, and again, that's the annual salary. And secondly, an increase in the city manager's severance to a 9-month period. It currently is an 8-month period of severance. And there'll be an additional right to earn there will be a right to earn 3 additional months up to 12 months of severance based on his time period with us. So those are the substantive changes. I would like to read the fiscal impact into the record. I think that's quite important. The total fiscal impact for a 5% pay increase is $17,808 annually. A 3% increase was assumed in the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget document. So for clarity's sake, if this item is approved, we would ask and recommend that a budget amendment in order to reconcile the 3% that we anticipated to a 5% increase, which would amend that budget item by $7,125 for fiscal year 2024-2025. This will be funded by the general fund. And those are the only substantive changes for Amendment 3 to the city manager's employment contract.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions from the city council? Okay, do I have a motion then?
I'll move.
Okay, we have a first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstention? All right, the item passes 4-1. Okay, we are going to take a quick break before item 6.3, so if we could agree to 5 minutes, please. not on, sorry. We're moving on to item 6.3, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the Sixth Amendment to the agreement with Cole Huber LLP for city attorney services. Joshua McMurray, our city manager, will be presenting the item.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of the City Council, and members of the public. This item is the Sixth Amendment to the agreement we have with Cole Huber LLP, who provides our city attorney services. Just as background and for the public's benefit, in 2009 we issued an RFP. We received several responses, and ultimately the City Council at that time selected, at that time it was called Coda Cole LLP, as the firm to provide city attorney services. Since that time, there have been 5 amendments to that contract and that agreement, most of which cover the term and the length of the agreement, the retainer and the fees charged to the city, in addition to accounting for some name changes that the firm has gone through. This Sixth Amendment is for a 3-year term. The fiscal impact for this, for the general retainer services, would be $192,000 for this next fiscal year, $198,000 for 25-26, and $204,000 for 26-27. The first year represents an 11% increase. The following 2 years represents a 3% increase. That concludes my staff report. The staff report does have the agreement and the 5 prior amendments to the agreement as attached, and I'm available for any questions that you might have.
All right, any questions from the City Council? Councilmember Fuller.
Yes, listening to your description, the fiscal impact will be $20,000 increase the first year, approximately?
Approximately.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion?
I move approval to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the Sixth Amendment to the agreement with Cole Huber LLP for city attorney services.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstentions? Okay, the item passes 4-1. All right. Item 6.4, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a joint use agreement and side agreement between the City of Oakley and the Oakley Union Elementary School District. This will be presented by Joshua McMurray, our city manager.
Yes, good evening again. This is a topic that has been a discussion in the community for several years, and I'm happy to say that I think we have good resolution and a good way forward to move on from the current agreement. So in September of 2002, the City Council at that time approved this joint use agreement with the city and the Oakley Union Elementary School District to continue a practice that was started back in the county prior to incorporation to ensure the Oakley area had sufficient park and playground space. It was obviously we weren't incorporated at that time. There was less development that occurred, and in an effort to provide the residents in this area adequate facilities, they partnered with the school district to provide those facilities and help maintain those facilities. Jointly construct and help maintain. In 2002, the City Council, as I mentioned, adopted the agreement to continue that arrangement, and it was retroactive to July 1st of 2000. The 4 joint use areas in that agreement are the Garinger Elementary, the park area at Garinger Elementary, the park and playground area at Oakley Elementary, the park and playground area at O'Hara Middle School, and the park and playground area of Vintage Parkway Elementary. The agreement required us to pay the school district $150,000 per year for the maintenance of those facilities that we could jointly use. As time has passed and those facilities have enjoyed much use, they've come to a state of some disrepair, specifically the playgrounds at Oakley Elementary, Vintage Parkway Elementary, and to some degree O'Hara Park Elementary. There is no play structure at Geringer. And in looking at this, and it's important to note also that the current agreement, if nothing is done, that arrangement then is automatically extended at June 30th, 2025 for another 25-year term. So it's imperative in my mind that we move on from that agreement and we capture what's in the ground today, what the current situation is, and in respect to what both the city and the district can do in terms of maintenance and which pieces of those facilities they maintain. So we approached it a little differently, and the same allowances in the prior agreement would be allowed in this agreement in terms of the joint use of the facilities, the ability for each entity to waive fees for the other to use those facilities, and a prioritization of where we fall and where the school district falls in terms of the ability to use those facilities at specified times. This agreement would be a 5-year term and not a 25-year term. There is a option to extend the agreement additional 2 years. There's an Education Code section 17529 that the district would have to make a determination of non-interference of, and then the agreement would be automatically extended for 2 years. But I think it's really important to point out that the differences in this agreement than the prior agreement and why it's going to work better for both the city and the school district. The 2 joint use facilities now in this agreement as proposed are O'Hara Park Elementary and then Vintage Parkway Elementary. I'm sorry, what? You're shaking your head.
O'Hara Park's the middle school.
I'm sorry, yes. I'm sorry, middle school. I'm sorry about that. The O'Hara Park Middle School and the Vintage Parkway Elementary. Those 2 facilities have both field area and playgrounds. The O'Hara Park Middle School playground, that playground is mostly usable. There are portions of it that need to be replaced, and there's some fixtures like a bench and some other pieces that need to be replaced as well. The Vintage Parkway Elementary School site is one that is in much more disrepair. It has been fenced off by the school district, and it also has been fenced off at Oakley Elementary because that playground is in equally bad shape. So this agreement would identify O'Hara Park Middle School as a site where a playground would remain, and the city would commit to enhancing that playground and bringing it up to a state of good standing and something that, in terms of quality, that you would expect at a city facility. And then the city would be responsible for upgrading the playground in its entirety at Vintage Parkway because that playground completely needs to be demolished and reconstructed from new. The district and the city both feel that the playground at Oakley Elementary does not need to be there. And the school district, it's school district property, and we will help with the demolition, but that playground will be removed, and it will be the district's responsibility to program that area as they see fit. And then Geringer Elementary, there is only a field there, so there is no playground, so there is nothing that we are addressing on that site. As I mentioned before, the prior agreement required us to reimburse the district $150,000 a year for maintenance. This current agreement requires us to reimburse the district $75,000 a year maintenance, so the dollar amount is cut in half. The city would be responsible for maintaining the 2 play structures that I mentioned, the O'Hara Park Middle School play structure and the Vintage Parkway Elementary School play structure. And then the district would be responsible for maintaining the fields at Vintage, at O'Hara, and also at Oakley Elementary and at Geringer. In addition to those terms, the district has agreed to provide the city a one-time payment, and this is a very specific number, but $223,131. So as you see, there is a resolution to approve both the joint use agreement as well as the side agreement, and the side agreement memorializes the fact that the district will provide that one-time payment to the city. We are fully recognizing that that $223,000 is not enough to bring the Vintage Parkway Elementary School District play structure as well as the O'Hara Middle School play structure up to the standard that we needed to be brought up to. And we plan to address that at next year's mid-year budget. And we are going to work over the next several months to identify some funding to complete those two projects. So the plan would be at mid-year to add a CIP, a project into our capital improvement program that would identify those two sites and the improvements necessary and then the funding required. So I think I hit all of the pieces. Oh, the one point that I did want to add too, and the reason why the district and the city feel like the Oakley Elementary play structure can be demolished and not replaced with a new play structure is the fact that we have just recently constructed a play structure here on the Civic Center campus, and it's within a 550-foot distance from the play structure on the Oakley Elementary campus. So with that short walk into consideration and the fact that we have this play structure on our campus, both parties agreed that there does not need to be a play structure on the Oakley Elementary campus. So with that said, I do recommend approval of the resolution, which would again approve both the agreement and the side agreement, and I'm available for any questions.
Do any members of the City Council? Vice Mayor Shaw.
I know the agreement has a lot of different aspects, but of course the parks is probably the thing I hear the most about, other than Cypress Road in my district, would be Vintage Park. But so I'm curious about a timeline. I know you said mid-year budget review, but right now it's unsafe. So can you kind of walk us through what that would look like? And then I know it's going to take time to go out to bid and all that, but just for the general public, so they don't think that now that this agreement is put in place, they're going to have a park tomorrow.
Yeah, no, and understanding that there's some demolition that needs to be done, and that's really the first step. The city, even prior to bringing this agreement forward, has already agreed and discussed with the district that we are going to use our public works staff to do the demolition of those play structures. It gives our team a chance to demolish something that they haven't had an opportunity to do yet, so it gives them more experience, and it's also a more cost-effective way, both on the city side and the district side, to deal with those, those dangerous, structures. So, that would be the first step, this summer, this fall, to work on that demolition. Then, as I said, we'll bring back in February of 2025 the mid-year budget. We will discuss and add a project into the CIP, obviously with the City Council's approval, that would address the play structure specifically at Vintage, and we'd also address the deficiencies at the O'Hara Park Middle School play structure. So we would expect once that is added into the CIP, we would have to design the play structure, and we would have to go out to bid, like we just talked about previously with the budget, award a contract, and then have work commence probably in the middle of 2025.
And then another question, reimbursement of the $75,000 a year, it is still on a reimbursement basis, right? They have to do the work, provide the receipts, they get the money reimbursed?
Correct.
Okay, and then I think, let's see, timeline. I had one more question, but it's escaped my mind, so.
Councilmember Fuller.
Yes, would you go over one more time what you just said about putting up and raising prices and bids?
I was recognizing the fact that, as I said previously, the district is making a one-time contribution to the city to address the deficiencies with the playgrounds. That is not enough, in our opinion, to bring the community and specifically those areas. And as we're talking specifically about Vintage Parkway, they don't have a park. There is no city park in that subdivision. It's quite a large subdivision of many different components. And we really need to deliver to the community in that area a playground that is appropriate for the number of residents that live there, similar to what we did here at Civic Center Plaza. So, our plan is to add a capital improvement program project at mid-year in the 24-25 budget. We'll bring that mid-year for review in February of 2025. And then assuming the project gets added in, we would then have to design the project, go out to bid for the project, award the contract for the project, and then construct the project.
Okay. So are you saying that using the equipment there is now, if it's repaired, that takes care of the...
No, Vintage Parkway there is nothing there that we will reuse and nothing that can be reused. So Vintage Parkway is a scrape, as is the Oakley Elementary Playground. The O'Hara Park Middle School Playground is still in, I'd say, good condition. There are pieces of the play structure that need to be replaced, and there are, for instance, a park bench that needs to be replaced and some other, I'd say, site furnishings that can be replaced. So,
well, what is the discussion? Just if we go along with it, then Vintage Parkway is all taken care of for the cheaper price, and everybody's going to have a park up there. Is that it, or are we going to have to still go through all the CIP process?
That process will still need to ensue. This agreement gives us a path forward from the current agreement, and it outlines how we get to a new playground at Vintage Parkway, how we fix the playground at O'Hara, and what happens in terms of maintenance obligations and the reimbursement from the city to the district for maintenance.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is, I mentioned to you, but I'll mention here too, is I see this as irreconcilable differences. I've sat in here for 10 years and even commented on how it's going to go, and it's been a thorn in our side for a long time, and we've put out a lot of effort for trying to get compliance that we never received. I am thankful for Lintrell Fuller, no relation to me, and Sherry Seat for sitting down, and for people here that worked out the agreement. But the bottom line is we're just, as far as I'm concerned, why can't we just buy the property from the school? Would they be willing to sell that property to us so we could build a playground there and not have to worry about Vintage Parkway anymore, or whether they're going to comply or not comply, or what contract isn't going to work or is going to work?
I can't answer that question because we haven't had those discussions with the district. Is it possible? Yes, but I wouldn't allude to the fact that that's something we could do, want to do. That would be a discussion with the council. Giving direction to the city is something we should explore. But we looked at the agreement that's in place right now as something that we can't live with. And unfortunately, it was structured in such a way that if we don't do something, it automatically renews. And we are on the hook for reimbursing the district $150,000 a year. And right now, we have several facilities that are deficient that the community relies on for use. So we worked collaboratively with the district for well over a year to get to this agreement. I feel like it's a good agreement. I feel like it places the burden of maintenance on playgrounds, which we are good at, and it allows them to address their field issues specifically. So those two pieces of the puzzle are separated and specifically defined. It reduces our overall burden in terms of the financial structure of the agreement on the city, but it also places the burden of constructing projects, specifically the Vintage Parkway Park site, on the city. So there's give and take. I think it's a mutually beneficial agreement to both parties. And I can understand in the years that you've been sitting here, there has been a lot of discussion about what do we do here. We've never been at the point where we're at now, where we have both parties saying we agree in principle to what is on paper, and we have that right now. So the agreement in front of you is the same agreement that the school board will look at tomorrow night, and I wouldn't expect them to have any issues with this agreement, as we've already had the subcommittee consisting of the of the mayor and Councilmember Meadows, in addition to their two subcommittee members, board trustee members, that have been part of this ongoing discussion on what do we do. So there's buy-in from my perspective on both sides, and that is why we're recommending approval.
Okay, well, what, yeah, I keep hearing June 30th, 225, and then it's gonna automatic renew and those. I can't necessarily equate it, but if it's like auto renew, I call up and say, hey, I don't want it renewed anymore. What happens if we just call up and say, we're done?
That's what I'm trying to explain is that the agreement was not something that I would ever recommend that we enter into, both in terms of length. I mean, 25 years is a very long time. A lot of things can change, and they have, as we've discussed. But also the auto renew is quite unique, and typically you'd want a chance to revisit the agreement and have discussions with the other party that you're in agreement with to ensure that it's working for both sides. So that is why we are recommending a 5-year term up front. There is that 2-year automatic extension, but it's a much shorter term. If we do nothing with the current agreement, it is written so poorly that it will automatically extend, and we are on the hook with the current. So we have to do something, in my opinion.
Well, there's nobody here that I can talk about, so I won't. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Henderson.
I think my question just got answered, but it is agendized for the school board tomorrow night.
Correct.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Shaw.
You answered one of my questions as well, which was kind of explaining that it's not just playgrounds, it's playgrounds and hardscapes, which the bench was what I wanted to bring up. So anything that's not turf would be not just the play structure, would be the responsibility of the city, whatever else is there at that site.
Correct.
And then, I had somebody mention to me about the potential of buying the property, and like Councilmember Fuller had said, and I think this is an alternative to buying the property that's going to give our residents the use of these now city-maintained play structures in areas that our residents don't have in those neighborhoods. And doing our budget, all the things that we just did tonight, the funds to buy that and then also build it would be way more than this agreement. And so I these residents, these vintage residents especially, and I know O'Hara as well, but I hear it all the time about them wanting this space, and they use it. That neighborhood uses that park a lot. So I am in favor of this, but I know we're still talking questions, so.
You mentioned the timeline about work beginning about mid-year 2025. I think that's okay for something that's fully gated off, right? Or will be demolished. But as Vice Mayor Shaw just talked about that bench, I get emails all the time about the bench. People are ripping I don't know how true it is, but people are ripping their pants on the bench. Is there a way to at least update or remove the bench at O'Hara before we get to that February 2025? Because it is definitely an area of issue.
Yeah, we can definitely, I'd say, revisit some of the more critical pieces of infrastructure that might need to be replaced at a much sooner. Yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, I assume once they're under sort of this agreement, anybody who goes to it, right, they have I'm not going to say the app correctly, but the reporting app, right? And then it would go through the regular channels like any other park in the city, correct? So it would have a much quicker turnaround time, we would assume, than the convoluted thing that's happening today.
Correct. Yeah, they would use the Oakley on-demand app, and it would come directly to us right away as soon as they hit submit, and we would have to address it.
Perfect. Okay, great. Any other questions? All right, amazing. I'm very, very excited. This has been a ton of work. I mean, I think Councilmember Meadows and I can speak to the amount of work, and I'm very, very happy the people that came to the table. I think it's a much different conversation than we probably were having 3 or 4 years ago. So I hope it's reflected that, we should be grateful for the amount of effort that's gone into this and the amount of work and the people who really want to make this right for our residents. So I just wanted to get that out there too. Do I have a motion?
So I would agree. We did have positive conversations with the reps from the school district board. I move approval of item 6.4.
Just in case anybody here wants to make public comment, let me do that too. Perfect. Great. Okay, now we have a first.
Yeah, I would like, yeah.
Okay. First and a second on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? All right, this passes 5-0. Okay, all right. Oh, I did that one. We're on to reports. Item 7.1, City Manager, Mr. McMurray. Oh, I am?
We still got 6.5.
Dang it. I got so excited. Oh, SROs, 6.5. God, I saw school. I got confused. I'm tired already. Adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between the City of Oakley and the Oakley Union Elementary School District for school resource office services. This is again Joshua McMurray.
Thank you again. And this is another agreement with the Oakley Union Elementary School District. And this is a topic that we've been discussing with the school district probably for about a year. And earlier this year, when the chief of police reported to you all about the police department and updated you all about the past year prior, also alluded to the fact that we were talking with the school district about an SRO at the two middle schools, and that would be O'Hara Park Middle School and Delta Vista Middle School. And our desire at that time was to work with the district to develop a term sheet that we both felt comfortable enough with to ultimately craft an agreement and then bring that to the city council, which is what we are presenting to you tonight. In my research, and I did not know this, and I've been with the city quite some time, but it looks not this long though. It looks like the agreement was first discussed and approved in 2000. And lasted all the way until about 2006, and then I can't find really anything after 2006. So we did have an arrangement at one time with the elementary school district for SRO services, and that would have been with the county sheriff's department, because we just became a standalone department in 2016. So this again is a 3-year term agreement. I think what is critical, although the agreement starts on July 1st of 2024, it really is dependent on staffing. And we heard Ms. Tejeda earlier tonight talk about staffing numbers at the police department specifically. And that's why we've built in a trigger, and this was developed by the police chief. So, you know, he feels like when he has a steady staffing level of 36 officers, that would be the time that we could then dedicate one of those officers to be the new SRO split time at the two middle schools. We are not proposing two, one on each campus. It is one SRO, and their time would be split at both campuses. So it's a 3-year term. It has a trigger in terms of when this agreement would essentially be activated, when the district would have to start paying us. And to get into the term of payment, the way the existing SRO structure is with the high school district, because we provide an SRO at the high school, is that the school district reimburses us 50% of the base salary. So we structured this agreement exactly the same, taking into account the escalators that we talked about prior to, that the POA has agreed to with their MOU. So the contribution from the school district for this next fiscal year would be $71,308. 25-26, it would be $73,447, and 26-27, it would be $75,651. Payments would be made in quarterly installments, and we would prorate that this year, assuming that we could start the SRO Thanksgiving, Christmas time. Don't want to be more optimistic than that right now, but if things go well, maybe it is a little sooner. What else did I want to say? Lastly, I would like to add that after we developed the draft and published the agenda, I had an additional conversation with the superintendent of the school district, and he requested a change, specifically under the organization term of the agreement. And in addition to the last sentence, there is something that we both kind of worded to ensure it works for both parties. We would like to add in, for the record, to ensure collaboration, OUESD may request a personnel change in the SRO from the City of Oakley. That change may or may not be accommodated depending on staffing levels at the police department. So it just provides them the ability, if the SRO, in their opinion, isn't a good fit, we would be able to have that discussion, mutually agree if we're able to make that change. If not, there is language that protects us from having to make that change. So with that, that concludes my presentation. Myself and the Chief of Police are available for any questions. And I do recommend that you approve the agreement as presented with the one modification that I read into the record. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Shaw.
You mentioned that it's modified after the high school SRO program agreement. Are we happy with that agreement?
I mean, in my opinion, it's been a good agreement. If the chief wants to expand on that, put you on the spot, apologize, but
Sorry.
you know, I think he might be able to provide you know, a real good kind of overview of how that agreement has worked.
And then a follow-up on that before he comes up is, when is the high school their agreement renew or get renegotiated?
That's a great question. The high school agreement we are currently out of term with, and that is something that we were discussing actively with the superintendent. Obviously, Superintendent Volta is leaving at the end of this month to go to a new position. So we will still work with the school district to get that agreement up to date in terms of the cost share and a new term that would extend current through future years.
I just wanted to, like, as if they were up for renew, obviously are, but if they, I didn't, and then we're going to do this one 3 years, if so, I just was curious, but.
I've had those discussions with current Superintendent Volta. I wouldn't expect the district to have any issue with what we've prior discussed.
Good evening. So during my tenure with the City of Oakley, even predating my time as chief here, I've seen how the modeling of the SRO at the high school district has changed over the past few years. And some of those changes have included, we used to treat the high school SRO as a juvenile detective. And so what that would do is it would pull the SRO away from the school, and it would bring him back here to the PD so he could work on those types of cases. We took that responsibility away from the SRO, and we leave that SRO at the school 100% of the time. That is good modeling. That is working out well. The high school is very satisfied with the current arrangement and the particular SRO that they have. This proposed SRO would be the same modeling, 100% of the time at the two schools. That is to say, you know, ideally 50% at each school. The way I see that playing out is the SRO is going to have to make some decisions on which campus deserves more of his or her time for any given week. But I do believe it is a good model that we have in place right now.
Thank you.
Do we have any, sorry, I'm jumping over you. I got it first. No, Henderson, Councilmember Henderson. Do we have any, how many middle schools currently are doing this around the area? Do we know how many have SROs?
I'm going to venture out and say that Pittsburgh does.
Okay.
And Brentwood does too.
At the middle school, Brentwood has SROs? Okay. Do they kind of do this split? Because I can't even think about how many middle schools Brentwood has. 2 at least. 3, yeah.
3.
I think it's 3. Do you know if they do a split or if they have a dedicated? You don't know?
I don't know specifically, but they do have more than one SRO.
Okay.
I'm not sure how many campuses those multiple SROs serve.
Okay. And then one more question. So say, you know, both schools need the person equally. Is there anything in this agreement that says, hey, if we decide that we need an additional, or would it be a completely new agreement that they have to work out?
It would be an amendment to the agreement.
Okay.
The agreement is specific to one SRO at both campuses right now.
Okay. Okay, great. Now it's your turn, Councilmember Henderson, sorry.
And is this on their agenda again tomorrow night for the school board?
Correct, it is.
Okay. So we're out in front of them on both of these items?
Yeah, just how the meeting dates lined up. Yep.
Councilmember Fuller.
Yes, I like the agreement. I like what's going on. I have under the second page, top of the page is purpose, and I'm wondering why it comes out so strong. We're talking through about collaboration all the way through. We're going through the whole situation, but when we come to purpose, the purpose of the SRO, it says to find the most useful manner, and we're going to bring safety and all these things, but the idea that there is a decision is going to be made to create an atmosphere of, and it doesn't mention anything about collaboration. My own thought, would you object to a sentence in there? This first part of the sentence is on purpose, is in collaboration with OUESD and OPD, that a atmosphere will be created. I like the idea of collaboration. I don't know how, I just happened to go through an American Educational Research Association, AERA, present webinar, not necessarily about this, but it worked on SROs, keeping in mind that I don't know what their measurements are, I don't know how they address the study, but there's a few studies out that say the SROs are not working like they were supposed to work, and there's been difficulties. So I would like to see ours work. I think it has a lot to offer, but I do think it's the collaboration, and I don't know what you think, but I see it as the school district's responsibility to address ongoing behavior and discipline problems, and we can work with them. But it's not our responsibility. It's their responsibility. And I don't want people coming up 6 months from now and say, why aren't the police going out for doing this on these guys and this on that? It does say that we will, if they believe it's a crime, they'll contact the SRO, and then the SRO will make a decision. But I want it clear that we're working collaboratively and not, I see it as OUESD as creating this educationally. That's what they got the credential for, the atmosphere for education to go on, and not rely on us for discipline and those type of things.
Regardless of the wording of the agreement, I can assure you that this has been a very collaborative effort up to this point. The school district and I and the city management have all been working hand in hand to make sure that we get this agreement just right, so we create this relationship between both parties. The ultimate desire is that the two schools, receive law enforcement services at the campus. Our officer is not there to be the disciplinarian of the school. That is not our function. We are there to prevent crime and provide a law enforcement service.
Okay, well, I would like to add that in there. I'd be glad to move it with that little core.
I just would like to add, if there are any amendments that are proposed and the council ultimately adopts, those have not been discussed with the school district, so I would have to provide that to them. In the event that they're substantive and the district doesn't agree to those terms, we'll have to come back with the agreement. I just want to make sure we're aware.
I don't see why they would turn them down, but I would like to add that in. Working collaboratively with OUESD and OPD, that an atmosphere will be created, or words to that effect, working together, not just on the purpose, right?
Are you just talking about adding to the beginning of that paragraph?
Right, just at the beginning of the sentence. In other words, we start right out, an atmosphere, I can't remember exactly, and I don't have the form in front of me, but it starts right out, an atmosphere will be created for the most useful one, but it doesn't say, there it is, yeah, to create and encourage, yeah, through every useful means. I agree with that. I mean, we're doing that, but the useful means and what's needed is a collaborative effort that would come out from the beginning. In other words, what just said there, that working collaboratively, both agencies together to create encourage, right, that type. So I will move it with that amendment.
What would be the process for, I mean, this is going before their school board tomorrow.
Yes,
So-
so I would say if you approve this item with an amendment, we would take that amendment and we would provide that to the school district, and I would let the superintendent know that is the language the council desires to be in, and then he would present that to his board, and they would have to decide and ultimately take a vote.
Okay, Councilmember Meadows?
Councilmember Fuller, what wording did you add to the beginning?
Okay, can I look at your, okay. In collaboration with OUESD and OPD, and it doesn't matter to me particularly which one is first, but they're there. As the purpose is to create, in other words, in collaboration with OUESD and OPD, the purpose is to create and encourage through every useful purpose, and go on from there. But with that, making it, because I really want to see a collaborative effort, and I know that it is collaborative, but I like for ongoing situations to have those words in there.
Vice Mayor Shaw?
I feel like it addresses it in the middle where it says to exchange wholesome communications and ideas, and it includes students, parents, OUESD employees, and police officers. So it's even more inclusive than just the school district and the Oakley Police Department. So I feel like it addresses that collaborative effort and includes even more parties to that collaboration.
Well, in answer to that, I don't see it as, it's nice to have communication, and talk with each other and go over it, but collaboration comes through the decision and an agreement to be worked out. And the fact that we're talking with everybody is nice, and I really do encourage that, and I want that to come together. But in making decisions with the school district, the principal, with the chief, with those, is a collaborative effort coming to a decision comes there, which is not always easy.
I think for me, I don't have the document in front of me, I could go get it, but it sounds like we're talking a lot around the same sort of thing. So it sounds like there's only some minor changes that you wish to see. What would those changes be specifically? I think that's what we have to iron out.
We have notes on what you just said. So I mean, if it's a motion with a second and there's a vote and it's approved, we'll present that to the district. If it doesn't get included in the motion and there's a vote, we'll present it to the district as is.
Okay, great. So there was a first on with that amendment. Is there a second on with that amendment? Okay, so seeing none, that motion dies. Is there a motion as written?
I have moved as written.
Okay, we have a first on as written. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, this item passes 5-0. Okay, now I'm good to go on to item 7.1, city manager reports.
I'll make this brief. As the Councilmember Fuller mentioned, our Juneteenth celebration, our second annual Juneteenth celebration, will take place here at Civic Center Plaza on June 15th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Summerfest is fastly approaching. That is on June 29th. We're going to have the first annual parade here at the city, and that will be on Main Street from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then the Summerfest, the actual event, will take place from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. I would also like to add that with the heat and the longer days, we have increased the hours that our splash pads will be open. So those hours will be 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. through Labor Day. And just for everybody's benefit, the two splash pads are located at Creekside Park and Nunn Wilson Park. That covers A, B, we have attached the business license update list for the month of May. And then C and D are from Wynn Residential and their monthly report for the Oak Apartments, as well as some information regarding senior housing. That concludes my report. There is a representative here from Wynn Residential if there are any questions.
Do we have any questions from the council? Okay. All right. See, I had one, but I didn't write it down, so that's on me.
So, questions for?
It was for Wynn Residential.
Wynn? Okay,
Yep.
well, you didn't move on, so I'm just gonna go ahead and ask.
Perfect.
How have the residents been adjusting that have been moved back to the units that were the ones that were displaced? And I did see the work order real page printout, so I do appreciate that, because I know we'd asked about that last time. And then also we did get supplemental information regarding work on past work orders, saying that no emergency work orders were still pending. So I just wanted to put an appreciation out for that. But I am curious, since we did talk about it so much at the last meeting, how all that went with getting everyone back, and if you have any updates.
As far as the residents returning to their homes, of course, they were all very inconvenienced, and they were.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I don't know who you are.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My name is Katie Aguirre. I'm the regional manager for the Oaks. I'm a staff member of Oak.
On premises for the Oaks?
No, I'm not on premises. I'm the supervisor for the property.
Your coffee with Katie, right? Okay, perfect.
Yes. So the residents were very happy to be home. We did provide them with assistance in clearing out the refrigerator since the power was out for a few days. They all received a stipend to replace the food that had gone bad. They all received a rent credit for the days that they were out. And all in all, everyone was very happy to be home. We were able to provide shuttles to and from the hotels to make sure everyone got back safely and as quickly as we could. There were a few people that stayed a little bit longer because they needed the elevator, and the elevator took a couple extra days to get up and running. But all in all, the site staff actually did a really great job coordinating all of the movement on the property.
Okay, and then I did think of another question. I had been at the site after the residents were starting to move back in, and I was literally just popping in for a second, and the community room was full of the residents that were happy to be home. And a lot of them had questions for me about programming, the difference between Section 8 housing and tax credit housing, 30% of rent payment opposed to 30%, or 30% of income being their rent opposed to 30% of market rent. And it was probably a good 2-hour conversation, just really helping the people understand. And so many of them told me, like, I don't know how to apply for Section 8, like a voucher. I don't know how to do this. And so a recommendation, maybe not so much a question, would be, or it is a question, do you provide that sort of education programming through your social service coordinator or your activities coordinator? And if not, would you be willing to maybe bring somebody in to really give especially the seniors, an education on how to apply for those services that are available to them, whether it be helping with their utilities, getting the care program, which I'm sure you guys have done some of those, but they really specifically wanted to understand how to get on the waiting list for a Section 8 voucher where they could still keep their apartment, but their rent would be determined under their income opposed to the market rent.
We absolutely do. The care program, the utility assistance, food assistance. We have a lot of information that comes out of our office for those things through our social programs. In terms of the Section 8 housing, generally those are the type of programs, if someone comes to us and say, hey, I'm having trouble paying my rent, you know, what kind of programs do you know about? We're gonna direct them towards the Section 8 for the county, in addition to any like temporary rental assistance programs that we know of.
And I think that's great, but if we're waiting for them to be in a need, Like, and they're having to come to you, but some of them don't know that they can come to you and ask those questions, right? So just kind of giving a layout of the different programs that the county has to offer might just be a great educational presentation, and then they can come privately to the worker and say, I would like more information, or can you help me get to that website? And that's really, I think that's what consumed the few hours I was there, and I felt great about it. But understanding that live-in aids income doesn't count when they're qualifying under income, and just the questions that they had were great. I just think that providing that safe space to say, here are the programs, if you need them, come see us, but giving them a layout of.
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
those.
I wrote down
Okay,
your
perfect.
suggestion, and I'm gonna actually take it to the next meeting.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anything else?
Councilmember Fuller.
Yes. In your letter, you come down and you say, I understand where you, my question was to your agent or whoever was here, what is the purpose of the senior housing? And he couldn't really provide an answer, at least to me, what I could see. In other words, he said, well, we put everybody there, but he didn't say why. And I'm reading your letter about HUD. Yes, you can put seniors into one area as long as they know they're coming into one area, they're going there. But it's designed and facilitates elderly people, is basically what it meant, if I remember correctly. And what I'm not hearing from you or them, from him, was that what is the design? Why is it advantageous to be living in that apartment? I am hearing from people that are living in that area that they were getting maltreated. Now, we haven't investigated, but they're angry. They don't feel that they're getting addressed, that they're discourteous, and that they can't answer what is the advantage of living in senior housing. They're told, well, if you're coming in here, you're going to live in that apartment. And I'm sitting there, that's not really inclusive. Yes, so I'm anxious to hear from you, what is the advantage and how is it being carried out for a person that's 55 or older to live in that apartment, or at least one person to live in that building, versus being inclusive throughout the complex?
So our entire complex is open for seniors. They're welcome to apply to any of our buildings and would qualify for any of our buildings. The benefit to being in a senior building is the lack of people that are underage. Many of our seniors actually enjoy that aspect of the housing. It's quieter for them. It's less disruptive because you have less traffic coming in and out with the kids and the younger folks with their guests and things like that. So they enjoy the peaceful enjoyment of the property a little better. It's a little bit more exclusive for them, so they can sit and relax in their community rooms without having to worry about anyone underage intruding on their time and space. So it's voluntary for them. They're welcome to apply for any of our buildings in the complex.
Okay, just from my point of view, yes, I'm hearing you and I'm hearing them. I'm not hearing, I would much rather have them coming up saying, yes, we find it so nice to live in there.
So I will be honest, I actually have a couple of our residents, because I guess at the beginning of the Oaks, when they were initially creating it, it was senior housing first. And when they built the family housing on the same lot, they were actually a little upset about it because they wanted it to be senior housing. They didn't like that they had to now share their space with the family housing. So it definitely is something that our seniors enjoy.
Okay, well, like Councilmember Shaw says, many seniors just don't know what's the advantage for them, especially like the health on PG&E. If you use a CPAP machine, they cut it back, but put it back again. But that's a simple one. But if you get a doctor to sign a note, you're using a CPAP machine that cuts back on your electric bill that goes through it. That's just one. But I'm saying there's a number of things that could make that are advantageous for them. If you're going to separate them, there's advantageous. I think you follow what I mean. Councilmember Shaw puts things, or I don't know, some places, I don't think you can accommodate, but even have senior dances and,
We do.
okay.
We
so-
had a sock hop last year, actually.
Okay.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Vice Mayor Shaw.
And the CPAP machine, I know when my mom was on some medical equipment, she had reduced utilities, but that's available to everybody, including people in family housing, not just seniors. So, but yes, I think that the seniors actually, some of them had made comments after the last meeting saying, we don't want to live in the family buildings. They actually came to me and said that, or sent emails or put posts online. I mean, it was crazy. So those that live in senior housing usually choose to live in senior housing because they want to be with their age group and same interests and that kind of stuff. And some have lived, in family housing and they wait on a waiting list to get there. Some will take a unit somewhere else just as a placeholder until they can get in those senior housing units. So I have a waiting list 3 to 4 years to get into my place. So, and we're 62 and over, but it's they want that unit, that apartment, their own, I call it aging in place, where they can go stay out of congregate living, but still have some sort of independence. And I know independent living is kind of a taboo statement now, but that's why I call it aging in place. And so they still maintain some of their independence by having their own apartment, but they're in a community that they can still enjoy the company of other people their age. So.
Called inclusion.
I have some questions. When they apply, does it designate the different buildings? So like some of the buildings on here, like I see Oak Forest Senior Villas, and then I see Oak Place Senior Villas, but I know there's a third one, and I don't know which one.
Oak Grove
Oak,
Terrace.
Oak Grove Terrace or Commons at Oak Grove?
Commons at Oak Grove is the big family building.
Family, okay. So it's the Oak Grove Terrace. That's the other senior building.
That's one of the first questions we ask applicants when they call. When they say, hey, do you have any availability? We say, are you over the age of 55? Are you interested in one of our senior buildings or one of our family buildings?
Okay, great. So you don't force them into a senior building just because they say they're over 55.
We actually have different income requirements as well. So it's 1.5 times the rent to qualify for one of our senior buildings, which is a benefit to them because of the fixed income. And then it's actually 2.5 times the rent to qualify for our family housing. So it's to their benefit if they want the senior as well.
Okay. So it actually sounds discriminatory towards the families, but just kidding. I know it's state requirements, everybody. I got it. On your average days to complete, there's quite, I'm on your report, the real page report that Vice Mayor Shaw referenced. Average days to complete, there's quite a bit of discrepancies in how quickly things are getting taken care of. I noticed there's one of the senior buildings, it takes 106 days to complete. What is that due to? Why is that one, 106 days and then Oak Ridge is 149? Like, is it because of the complexity, because of orders? But that seems like a really long time because...
Yeah, so I know Oak kind of explained this the last time he was here, but it's different to look at the actual chart.
Yeah.
So a lot of the reasons is we'll put in the work orders, and sometimes they have to get held for various reasons, whether it's working with vendors, working with orders, or they're just a lower priority item that, it's like a preventative maintenance type of deal that we've put in the system. So that has a tendency to throw off the numbers. Our maintenance director is working closely with the site right now just to make those numbers look a little better and make them look more legitimate by, the preventative maintenance, we're putting it more on a schedule so that it doesn't throw off those numbers. And we are going and checking on those older work orders to see why they were stalled and to make sure that they're completed timely.
Okay, and then one further question. I've definitely been directing people to, I've heard that there's some frustration just because of how long work orders take or whatever. So they're saying that they're not even putting in work orders. And so I'm telling them that if they would like to get things fixed, there has to be a record of asking for it, right? I mean, we can't just say they never fix anything if there's no record of that thing. But maybe for future, is there any way, I know the elevators are particularly concerning in many buildings. I mean, I had somebody who said, you know, she was like 10 months pregnant, told to walk up and down the stairs because her elevator wasn't working. So if there's any way that we could call out one of those ones that seem to be like more of a health and safety sort of situation, I would appreciate seeing that, because they're coming to us, the residents come to us, and I would like to at least just have some background information. And again, I'm telling them, if you haven't opened a work order, there's nothing that can be done. We can't just do something based on, you know, I mean, sometimes it's something that they read or heard, right? It's not really a reality. So I'm recommending that they also do the work order, but if we could upgrade this report even a little bit further, and some of those health and safety stuff like that, like specifically elevator complaints, like I feel like are really important to highlight. I think the other thing, which I've heard feedback is better now, is the trash chutes. People seem to like the carts, so I don't know like how permanent that solution is, but people were saying that the carts outside were good to get to where they couldn't get to the trash chutes. But if we could just have some updates on that. And then one other thing, post everybody having to have that, you guys were going to work on an emergency evacuation plan and like doing drills and stuff like that, whatever the plan was to do with that. So I'm just hoping that that's something that will be presented to us in one of the reports, the kind of the status of it, you know, what the results were and all of that stuff, so that we have a good sense on where that all is.
Yeah, we've been actually discussing the plan and already getting something in place, so we should have something to present to you for the next report.
Okay, great. And then my, I guess, further ask would kind of be to also involve all the agencies that would be involved, right? Because I know there was some fire stuff, right? They said that there was a fire in the trash chute. And I just know, because we have emergency plans here, and, you know, it's often people outside of the building who have to help interact and do all of that stuff. So I would just encourage you to make sure that all of those folks are involved in understanding what the protocol and plan is, so that it doesn't get, you know, no one gets left behind or whatever. So, okay, Vice Mayor Shaw?
With the continued completion of the backlog on work orders, I'm assuming you expect to see that and changing to a preventative maintenance schedule, so you're not having to put them in early. You see that that range changing, right? Like the days to complete.
Yes. So
average days of completion, and kind of, again, doing it, I know that like with emergencies like the red tag, right, you had to kind of really all hands on deck staff, which is going to put work orders, especially not emergency work orders, behind, which is going to make some months longer than others. But to ask is, did you guys ever include in your app or the way that they can log work orders electronically? Originally, it was just for their units. Did you guys include where they can do things for the building, like the elevators or the laundry rooms? And I know that was something that Oak was saying that he wanted to include when we were still having our ad hoc committee meeting. And I think that might help people feel comfortable to put in those work orders.
I know that he is working with our software as RealPage. So he was working with RealPage on a fix for that. Right now, the site staff can actually enter those. So if the residents call in, if there's a common area issue, they can call in and we can add those work orders into the system and dispatch.
Because right now you encourage them to use the program to report work orders, but they still need to call for
common areas. I believe that we haven't seen the fix for that one yet, but they because the app is specific to their personal unit, so any of the work orders or requests or payments come directly from their unit. So there's not an option for them to put in a common area, so they would be calling those ones in.
And then for those that don't necessarily like to use technology, they can call in work orders for their units. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Seeing no further questions, I think you're done. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to item 7.2, Oakley City Council. Oakley City Council acting as the successor agency to the Oakley Redevelopment Agency. Item A, reports from council liaisons to regional committees, commissions, and boards, and Oakley City Council. Oakley City Council acting as the successor agency to the Oakley Redevelopment Agency. Councilmember Meadows.
In the last 2 weeks, the only thing I've had to attend was Contra Costa Transportation Authority Planning Committee meeting last Thursday.
Vice Mayor Shaw.
Surprise, it's short. Contra Costa Mayor's Conference, and I got to go to the Freedom graduation ceremony, which was great.
Councilmember Henderson.
On the 4th, ISD had their meeting, mostly closed session. They're still working on trying to find a new general manager. And then on 6/5, I attended Supervisor Burgess' district meeting on the Bay Area Affordable Housing Bond. It was a good presentation and about 7 people in the audience. Thank you, Mayor, for sitting with me.
All right, on mine's not short, surprise. All right, so on 6/5, I got to go to the Hijas del Campos Casita move-in. So they worked with Carondelet High School to put tiny homes in various farms. Right now, just Frog Hollow Farm. So obviously, that's not. That's in Brentwood. It's not Oakley, but they have plans for future homes for some of our Oakley farm workers who are struggling right now, sharing lots of rooms and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see the first unveiling of that. So I was honored to be there. I also attended the BAFA work session, which was kind of an explanation of BAFA and all the different things that ABAG is trying to bring. There's some additional literature if anyone's interested. I think both of us grabbed some. Mayor's Conference, our program was actually on the county library. How timely. So they gave us information about all the 26 branches, including 5 unincorporated areas, and there's also a juvenile hall library. We got just a little bit more of the county perspective on everything. So 1/3 of county residents have library cards. Libraries are being used even more than pre-pandemic times. 26% of Contra Costa residents are active card holders, and there's 3 times as many physical checkouts as digital. So that was really fascinating, especially for all the people who say that you don't need physical libraries anymore. And they gave just a state of everything. There are some new resources that are going to be coming soon. They're working on a racial equity action plan, a marketing plan, and some of the new digital resources that will be available to library card holders are Hoopla, Consumer Reports, Washington Post, and Mango Languages. They're also piloting a program in Concord called Self-Service Sunday, where patrons will badge in using their library card. There will be 2 security guards, but no library staff present. We also heard about ABAG receiving the HCD report on the 7th RENA cycle, so not this 6th cycle, the 7th. And they've asked for transparency on how the numbers are derived, how vacant units are counted, how homeless residents are counted, and also just a message to look at BART. There are extensive repairs that are coming that are going to be requiring bus bridges, and it's through 2025. Also, Port Chicago Weekend is coming up, so that's an important event for out here. If you want more information, portchicagoweekend.org has everything. I also wanted to do a plug for there are several workshops coming up, so you want to run for office workshops. I did it on Zoom back when I was running. It was really interesting. There's one at the Lafayette Library, June 22nd, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. There's one at the Antioch Senior Center, June 24th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then in El Cerrito, the Hana Gardens Senior Center, June 26th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. I also got to attend the Meals on Wheels Gala, and that was really fascinating to see their impact out here, especially for our seniors. And that is it for my reports. All right, we're moving on to item B, request for future agendas. Does anybody have a request for a future agenda item? All right, great. Seeing none, we are on to item 8. There are no work sessions this evening. Item 9, we have no closed sessions. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Our next regular meeting will be held Tuesday, July 9th, 2024, beginning at 6:30 p.m. in the Oakley City Council chambers. The community is all invited to attend. And just a reminder that your mayor and vice mayor are doing a meeting on June 25th, too, in place of our council meeting, a Meet the Mayor. June 25th, there will be Meet the Mayor and Vice Mayor meeting here. Meeting is adjourned.